Attention creative civilians and servicemen alike. This is Sergeant Holly reporting live from the front lines of creativity on Poets at War. The hour is grave, but our spirits remain undaunted in our mission of art, theology, philosophy, fun. We begin, as always, with critical intelligence. Blogs direct from our officers stationed at the very edge of the creative battlefield. Our first and only dispatch comes as a general's report from our distinguished Bard-in-Chief, Joshua David Ling. Following this vital intelligence, we commence our main operation, the Broodcast, an Inkling-style gathering reminiscent of the legendary councils of Lewis and Tolkien at the Eagle and Child. To enlist in our monthly Broodcast, final Friday of each month, and share your works in progress with your fellow creative commandos, report immediately to joshuadavidling.com/brood. Your creative service is required. And now, reports from the front on Poets at War. This is another Poets at War General Report. And here's your General, Joshua David Ling.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's the General's Report, back again. Good to see you, good to be heard, all of those sorts of things. I am busy. A couple months ago, I was wondering if things were going to pick up or not, if I was going to have to find something else, and I realized it's a pattern. Everyone kind of works around the 5-day work week and the standard school schedule with summer off. And it's just a silly pattern that people follow based on work and school. And things changed a lot. I have a lot more work going on right now. Various clients, various types of work, and I'm pretty darn happy about it. So I don't have a lot to talk about. I am working on thumbnails. Here's one that I made for a classic episode of Poets at War you can go check out. Interview with Michael Bush. It's one of the earlier ones that I did. So you can check that out if you're interested in going over to the Brood channel and listening to an old episode of Poets at War. I think it's still a really good episode. Michael is just a really cool guy. Been around the Brood for a long time. And so with all that, I just kind of wanted to pop on, not even really mess with lights very much, and just say hi. I'm here. I'm working. I'm getting things done. Also, I think there's going to be a change to the poems. I think I'm removing all AI images, and really just images in general for now. It's not that I don't like them. I actually do. I enjoy creating them. They are slowing me down from putting out more consistent videos. And I think people are just less interested in the visual aspect of the stories. And I think people are used to doing it in their own minds. I think your own mind is going to create the best picture possible anyway for you. And there's a lot of other reasons going into it, which I won't get into at this particular moment. Jesse Marsalis, good friend of the Brood, and amazing page 50 wizard at various social media postings and all kinds of other stuff, has decided he's going to help me with making this look slightly better, as well as some other things. He is joining a couple people who are going to be helping me with all sorts of things. Are you wanting to say hi, Peter? Peter just walked in. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi to the people.
Hi.
Yep. So, any which way, we're going to be wrapping this one up today. Like I said, not a very long one, but there's a lot of stuff coming. I'm hoping to launch a Patreon soon, as well as Gumroad for an alternative to start allowing people to purchase and be a part of collecting these poems and these stories. And hopefully there will be more of them. We'll be ramping up production, and they'll be better than ever.
This is the Broodcast, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. To join, visit joshuadavidling.com/brood. And now, Operation Broodcast on Poets at War.
We're lion, witch, and warded, yeah. Our imaginations running wild and free in Middle Earth or Narnia. There's magic in what we believe.
Here's ringing singing
horrible.
still?
No, that was somewhat facetious, but yes.
Fair enough. I wouldn't like if you did actually have ears ringing from that. I like wouldn't blame you for not showing up or something. Like, hello, Daniel, how's it going, man?
Hey, I'm trying to get things working here. It's a going. Let me get somewhere quieter.
I got you. So, like I was telling Ramsey, would you prefer me to use that during the recordings, correct?
Or Jonathan's Jonathan's fine because my
Okay,
pen
John
name
or
on
Jonathan is
Royal
fine,
Road.
yeah. Do you prefer Jonathan?
Either or.
Okay. Gotcha. So, just making sure, because some people prefer not to use their name certain places, so just trying to make sure for recording purposes and whatnot. So yeah, I know. I think I'm pretty sure Alex is going to show up. Hoping Ian and or TK will. We will see. We've been pushing to try and see if TK can make it back. Hey Daniel. Abigail, I know, said she can't make it, and then Jesse, Carrie, and those Louisiana boys and whoever else. Braden sometimes pops in, so we'll see what happens. But who all sharing tonight so far?
I can share some of this
You
this
said you had
game
game
I'm
stuff,
working
right?
on. Yeah, it's a different one than last time.
Okay. Brendan, do you have something? Did you end up getting something done or no?
No. I mean, I got a lot done, but nothing finalized. Not I say finalized. Nothing in a form that would be shareable.
Gotcha. Okay. Ramsey, you're sharing, yes? John, I'll get used to it.
Yeah.
Hey there, Ian. Good to have you. He's getting into it. We can hear you before we see you.
I
Oh,
might
boy.
be able to share the ending I have, like where the Simon and Alexandra story ends.
Okay.
Like I have the entire, like I do have the ending, like the epilogue, but I don't. I'm not 100% sure. Right.
Right. I gotcha. Hello, Ian. Are you sharing tonight? Do what?
Yes.
We can't. Okay, there you are. Okay. All right. Sounds great.
That was a grunt.
That was a grunt. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, it was canceled out by the noise cancellation in Discord.
Figures.
So, okay. Well, I do know this is most of the folk. Oh, look, here's another right away. Okay, we're getting everybody all at once. Hello, Braden. Good to have you here.
Hello.
Good to have you here indeed. So, are you going to be sharing something tonight, Braden, or no? Up to you.
I can. I don't have anything flushed out yet, but
Jesse.
I've got some stuff I'm working on.
Okay. All right. Well, keep something
sorry,
ready. Hey there, Jesse.
It's been a rough day. I just needed to hop on to spend some time with friends.
By all means, if you just need to hang out, man. Oh boy, man, we got full house already. Bunch of people. We need some girls up in here again.
Tried to convince Chris to come, but she's having autistic burnout today, so big nope.
She'll get back around at some point. I know she will. So We've been praying for her.
You said artistic.
Thank you.
Did you say artistic?
Gotcha.
Or
You said
autistic.
artistic, right?
Because it could be either with her.
I said autistic burnout.
Autistic.
Oh,
He did say
oh,
autistic.
So it wasn't artistic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did think you said autistic. Yep.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I was just making sure I wasn't mishearing things. How's everybody doing?
Not bad at all. We've got a pretty full house. Lots of people sharing. Are you sharing, Jesse?
Just some news about the album. It's going along well. I've actually begun the recording process.
Sweet. You can fill us in a little bit more on that as we go. All right. Do we want to maybe set an actual order here by like maybe alphabetical first name? Is anyone feeling that? Just throwing it out there
I'm
for
not.
tonight. Not ongoing, just for tonight.
As the person who would probably be going first because my first name starts with B, no.
Okay, not that. Fair enough, fair enough. What if we did that, but I started? I haven't started in a while.
You could
That
just
way
have
every-
everyone roll a d.
There,
For initiative.
too much rolling. We are not Limp Biscuit up in here. No, anyway, jokes. Okay, so we rolling. Nobody. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Yeah, I can go first. That's fine. And we'll get going tonight. See how things happen. I have it up, or had it up, and then I restarted. So let me get to it real quick. Roll wrestling. There we go. And I decided I'm going to go ahead and read 2 chapters because people have been digging them and I've been one of the shorter ones. So we'll just see how it goes. This is actually going to overlap episodes this time. We're doing the last one of the first episode and the first one of the second episode. So keep in mind, in between. So the first one finishes our first episode. Everything I've read so far has been one episode, right? The individual chapters make up one episode. So after I read this first one, that'll be the end of the first episode, and then we'll be starting the second episode. Those are the 2 I'm reading. So feel like Rick Moranis and Spaceballs. Everybody got that? Anyway.
Never seen it.
Okay, this one's called Turning Night. Popcorn and pizza would work better this time instead of shrimp and steak, Jessica thought to herself as she worked on making this friendly night great. She fussed over every minute detail to make sure it looked like she didn't. And as the final touch, she messed up her hair to leave no little hint of the feelings that slowly were developing inside, regardless of how she was convinced. She herself was convinced that her interest in Joshua the big dog was professional at present. Joshua arrived about 5 minutes early and was jovial as he came in. He handed her some Lucha DVDs, and she asked him how he'd been. Pretty good, he smiled as he sat on her couch. Won my match with Ricky. He's real quick and he kicks pretty hard, but his patterns aren't that tricky. That move you hit at the end of the match looked like it killed that boy. You got a name for that airplane spine buster? It's called the Canine Killjoy. Hello. Who came in? Alex. Good to have you here, man.
Hello. Sorry I'm late. I completely forgot that this was happening tonight.
Well, I'm glad you remembered. Good to have you here. And I don't think you've said hi to John
You've got
yet.
Braden to thank for that.
Yeah,
Hello,
good.
John
Way to go,
Ramsay.
Braden. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Nice
Yep,
to meet you,
that's-
sir.
nice to meet you. too.
Alex's right-hand man around these parts. So there you go.
Be
All
quiet.
right.
Joshua's presenting.
Yep. I'm reading World of Wrestling, so I'm going to continue from where I left off here. So yeah, he said, Joshua said, won my match with Ricky. He's real quick and he kicks pretty hard, but his patterns aren't that tricky. That move you hit at the end of the match looked like it killed that boy. You got a name for that airplane spine buster? It's called the Canine Killjoy. Jessica smiled, but looked wary. Please say you'd never use that on me. You'd want me to hold back in a match between us? You can't be asking that seriously. Jessica frowned, thinking about how she'd let her emotions out. Want to put on a Lucha DVD? Like that one. What's the opening bout? Jessica and Josh watched and joked about luchadors, junk food, and more. Then, before they knew it, they looked at the clock. It was AM time, 2:04. Wow, oh wow, it's super late. Yeah, I'd better get back to bed. You know, I have 2 beds in here. You could take one of them instead. Jessica saw Josh freeze again, as if some horror jumped into his mind. You've been kind enough to me. Maybe some other time. She felt a pang of guilt this round instead of just confusion. She searched for the best thing to say in this case and came to one conclusion. "Okay," was all she said to him, so he took his DVD and left. "What is your deal, Joshua Slater? I've wondered since we met." Jessica grabbed her phone and took a note. Find out more about him. Check with the guys he trained with. Find out what's within. So that's the end of episode 1, and we're going to begin with the first poem of episode 2. This one's called Connections. 2010 is our main timeline. Okay. That's the what we've been doing so far. So this says 2010. Jessica finally found the number of the man who she was looking for. She dialed the number carefully, not knowing exactly what was in store. The phone rang 2 or 3 times before it was picked up. It was picked up by little. Okay, hold on. Sorry, my rhyming got messed up here. I see what I did. Let me start over. Jessica finally found the number of the man she was looking for. She dialed the number carefully, not knowing what exactly was in store. The phone rang 2 or 3 times before it was picked up by a little old man in a corner. "Wrestling school," is how he answered the phone. "Is this Gary Horner?" "Yes, ma'am, it is." "Yes, ma'am, what can I do for you?" "This is Jessica Valero. I'd like to come down and visit and teach. I've got some things to ask you about, and it's the very least I could do giving back to the newbies. When could I drop in?" "Anytime you want, Jessica. Are you working this weekend?" "No, I haven't been booked much lately. I'm kind of on the bad list. I'd be down for your afternoon class on Saturday. You okay with this?" "That'd be perfect, Jessica. We haven't had many stars in recent. You're a hero to a few of the students here, so your help would be more than decent. I'm sorry, though, I need to get back to this class." "Well, you have a good day, Gary, and keep being a very cool cat." Jessica was thankful for men like Gary as she hung up the phone. They made sure wrestlers slowly losing their popularity always had a home. Not every school was so kind, but many took care of their own. It was bittersweet reaching out to schools. It made Jessica feel somewhat alone. But she hoped even more that Gary would know about Josh, and maybe have some tips on what made his former student the way he was, on what exactly made the big dog tick. Then we go back to 1995 for a brief little thing. The sandbox was a lonely place. Nobody else wanted to play. All the homeschooled kids swung on swings and played monkey bars all day. But Anne Richards liked to build things, more than anyone else. She built her kingdom of Sandonia, even if it was by herself. Then a boy came strolling by and looked over what she'd made. "You make really cool sandcastles." "Thanks. Do you want to play?" There's that one. So that's where we're stopping this time around. Feedback on either of those. I know some people came in later, but any feedback before we continue?
What keeps coming to my mind
Yep.
is this could be adapted into like a stage play
Mm-hmm.
in an actual boxing ring.
In actual what?
Like that would be in an actual boxing ring.
In the wrestling ring? Yeah, good.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, wrestling ring.
Yeah,
that would be kind of cool.
Be playing. It could be playing on the big screens before they come out to the match.
Well, yeah, you could do that, but he was saying like you could do a whole play in the ring, and the ring is the stage. So sometimes the ring is, this room, that room, etc. But other times it's the actual ring for the actual matches, right?
and you can like bring out a bunch of props, and it would just be
That would be
fun.
really
But
cool, actually. You'd have
That'd
to
be
really
really
the
fun.
way
you'd have to really think about how to do it though, because usually a ring is not set up with one view like a stage. You'd have to think of it from all four positions, which would make it really interesting. Unless you set it up like a stage, which would limit the wrestling, but you know.
Now you could definitely do that though. You would just have to make sure that you specifically have motion for all of the scenes, even the dialogue scenes, where they're like walking around the ring or something
Right.
like that.
Right, yeah.
You
Yep,
could
that would
totally
be
do
really
it
cool.
though.
That would be really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, if I get some wrestling friends, because I know I have some friends who are wrestlers, but a lot of them are older, and I have a few here and there that I could contact. But like, if I start getting into wrestling business again, as far as just the connections, I may see if I can find a group of people to do something like that, or even a small version of some of this. That would be really cool. So, but yeah,
Speak to me afterwards.
what'd you say, Jesse?
Speak to me afterwards. I'm sure you have better connections, but speak to me afterwards.
Okay. Any other thoughts before we move on tonight? Okay.
Everything I heard sounded great, but I've heard this stuff before, I think.
Yep. Alex, are you sharing tonight?
I've got a concept that I've been working on that I'd love to get some feedback on, but I can share that whenever.
Okay.
I will just say my mother gets back in about 13-ish minutes. And she's been telling me she wants to spend some time with me. So if I could share in the next little bit,
I have
that'd
no
be
problem
great.
with you going
Someone can
next
get
if everyone else is
up.
cool with that. You're just showing the game, right? What'd you say, John?
Yeah.
What'd you say,
I
John?
was saying like he
Yeah.
should go next then.
I agree.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Let me pull up my Google Doc real quick. I've been cranky. I have been in a. Okay. So last time I was able to share, I shared a board game I'm working on developing. I think the working title right now is Vibes and Violence. But tonight I'm pivoting to another project I'm working on, another board game, which I'm calling Rules Lawyers, a card game about arguing with your friends about the rules and other things for fun. The objective is to be the first person to reach 10 points or being the last player standing after all other players are eliminated. So the general overview is that the game takes place over a series of turns. Then on your turn, you're going to either draw cards or gain 2 influence tokens. I won't go into all that stuff, but at the core of the game, so not going to go fully in depth of what the influence tokens are, but they are effectively the currency of the game. They're used to bid to become the opponent of a dispute. They're used for voting and avoiding penalties, etc., etc. They're used for a few different things. So you have to figure out, do I use it here? Do I wait? Do I hold on? And then the core of the game is the active player. The core of the game is the dispute. So the active player will draw a card off the top of the deck, and then all other players will then begin bidding they will bid their influence tokens for the right to oppose the active player. So I draw a card, and it's going to be a dispute of, say, like, is cereal a soup? And then you have to argue, yes, it is, then, or no, it's not. Then someone's going to be bidding against you. Then the table is going to use their influence tokens to vote on who they think presented the better, more logical, sillier, more entertaining argument. And I'm going to work on developing the card so there's a range of things so that it's going to be sillier things and also maybe some more silly things with like a politics deck on the side of like if you really want to go there you can, but you don't have to. But the core of the game is two sides argue, the table votes, and they use their resources to kind of weigh their votes. So you could have one person, they could theoretically outvote four others with my current system if they play their cards right. Then there's other things. There are rule dispute cards. So these are game changing, literally. They introduce or modify rules, add exceptions, shift objectives, bend reality, essentially. There are challenge cards, which these are either physical or skill-based mini games, because I was afraid I created a game I'm not going to be good at, so I'm going to need a way to cheat the system. So, like, I need to be able to challenge my nephew to an arm wrestling match so I can steal some of his points, because I know this kid is going to wreck me in the debates. And so, yeah, and so the challenges are going to be simple, like win a game of rock, paper, scissors, play a lightning round of charades. If you lose, gain a strike. So like it could be any number of things. Keep in mind you gain 3 strikes and you are out. Then probably my favorite mechanic that I've added is the now cards. They're instant chaos, no warning, no negotiation. Whenever the active player draws a card, they flip it over. If it reads now in big letters with red borders and all that signaling, all that psychological signaling, it's often going to be reflex based. So, like, slap the deck, try not to be the last person because, ouch, that might not work well. Some examples would be the last player to slap the discard pile loses 2 points. So if they don't have points, then they could use their tokens. But if they don't have either of those things, they get a strike. And they get 3 strikes and they're out. Then there's also Russian roulette. So starting with the player who drew the card, each player rolls a d6 clockwise until someone rolls a 1, and then that player will gain a strike, and then game continues on.
I feel like that's less Russian roulette and more geeky roulette.
Is it? Well, I mean, 6-sided die, that's a revolver. It has 6.
Russian roulette generally involves somebody dying, though.
I mean, it is the game version of that. I get what you're saying.
Fair enough.
Now you're talking.
I mean, hey, we could make this a high stakes game. I'm just saying.
Let's bring some violence into it.
That honestly could work as part of the joke. It's like, for legal purposes, please use a die.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Russian roulette with a 19.
Please use a die. Please use a die and don't cause a die. Anyway.
Right. But yeah,
Tell me how to live
all
life.
kinds of different options. But yeah, that's basically it. If you guys have ideas for dispute cards, like things I could throw in there, I have a little bit of a list.
Sandwiches.
Going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Classic.
Okay. Our hot dogs, sandwiches.
Our choir's
Taco
armies.
sandwiches.
What's up?
Hot dogs are tacos, yes.
I said
that is correct.
I said
the cube rule of food remains unbroken.
I said our choir's
I was going to ask if
our choir's armies.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Anyway, go ahead. Ian.
Gotcha.
What?
You were saying something.
I don't even remember what I said. That's how important it was.
Okay.
You can play back the recording and find out.
There you go.
Gotcha. Any ideas for like rule changing cards?
Hey, Joel.
Joel, what's up, man?
Joel? Whoa.
Good to have you here.
Joel. Hey. We're currently talking about a board game I'm making called Rules Lawyers, where you're arguing about the rules and stuff, other things with friends for fun, and hopefully no one dies from Russian roulette.
Is just because of the audience that you're targeting with this game, is Pathfinder a better game than D&D?
Oh,
There you go.
I
Yes,
really like
next
this idea.
question.
right. And then this would be a great way to start it off. So, like, let's imagine Alex drew that card. That's the dispute card. It's for 2 points, we'll say. And we're all bidding. I say I bid 1 influence token. Someone else bids something else, and then Brendan is really opinionated about it. Forgets oh wait, I might need these influence tokens for later, and then bids a bunch, and then hops in. And then it becomes Alex versus Brendan for like 2 or 3 minutes debating. And then the rest of us would then vote.
Being the resident wrestling geek, can you actually see John Cena? There's a question you should add.
That's fine.
I would not want to
If you
be in the
can't,
game
I got a
with,
lot of questions.
If I was in the game with Alex during that, metaphysics would be brought up, and I would lose.
Yes.
How many times would I quote Chesterton, though?
And this is why I have to have the challenge cards. It's like challenge someone to a wrestling match, and then see who comes out
wrestling
on top,
or whatever. Yeah, goofy stuff like
thumb
that.
wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you could do thumb wrestling. You could do a jumping jack competition.
There you go.
Who breaks first?
all kinds of, or just like a foot race.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, the base is debate. Are you saying that these like challenge to a wrestling competition, that's the changing of the rules?
No. So that's one of the card types is the challenge card. So like you have
if you draw a challenge card.
Yeah. So if I drew a challenge card, it might be challenge someone to a foot race. The winner gets to steal 2 points from the loser. Or the winner or the winner just gains 2 points.
And are the influence tokens the points?
People who are out of shape.
So the influence tokens are not the. I got to pull up the section on influence tokens. Give me a second. Influence tokens are the currency of the game. They are used for bidding. So say someone.
I understand the concept of bidding. Keep moving.
Okay. No. So the influence tokens are used for bidding, and they're also used for voting. So like whenever I vote, say I have five tokens. So it's not like a pure 1-to-1 democracy. So if you have like 3 people over here that disagree with Alex about I don't know, give me something.
Baptism.
Baptism. Okay, sure. If we have 3 players over here that disagree with him or that agree with him, it might seem like he has the majority on his side, so he could win. But over here, you have me, and it's like, okay, I just want Alex to win at this point. The game's gone on too long, and I've stocked up 4 or 5. I've stocked up like 10 influence tokens. I can throw that all in on my vote to just weigh it. So it's like the Electoral College, the board game, in a way.
Okay.
Interesting.
So what is this rules? What is this rules change? Are you talking about how you want to change it to something like?
The rules change. So those are another card type. So they function very much like a dispute. So it's going to be like, shoot, I need to find a good example. Like, you could say points or influence tokens no longer matter. Burn it all down, essentially. Now the game is just about doing this thing over here rather than what we've been doing. and then you would, as the active player, dispute. You would say, "No, I don't want that to happen," or "Yes, I do," and then someone else could try to challenge you, and then you would, as a table, agree or disagree on whether or not
So
that should
basically,
shift.
you can make changes to the win condition.
Yes, it could be as something as simple as you now need 15 points to win. So if someone's getting really close to the threshold, you could buy yourself time. All kinds of stuff.
Suggestion in that
You now
regard.
need 15 points.
Right. So real quick suggestion in that regard: having a very short list of no's, things that you cannot change, like unchangeable rules, would be helpful in this matter, just to keep things going. But a short list, just like make it like Robin Williams genie rules. I can't kill anyone, can't make anyone fall in love with you, can't etc. Can't raise the dead. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Change cards going to be in the main deck, or is it on separate deck?
I'm sorry?
Are the rule change cards going to be in the main deck that you draw from, or in a separate deck?
Yeah, so there is one deck of cards, and I'm thinking that they're all going to be shuffled in.
Okay,
Reminds
so
me-
people can't.
I
So
would-
people can't just come up with rule changes. There are specific cards that change specific rules.
On those, okay, for both
I
of those
would maybe
things,
I would honestly leave enough blank so that your table could make something up.
Well,
on
I
the
would
fly.
leave challenge cards blank. I wouldn't leave rule change cards blank.
Pure
Just
chaos.
because the problem with rule change cards is that you are dealing with a something that's way too volatile, because somebody could write a card that literally just says "I win the game."
Yeah, right. I've played
that's
games like that, but
Yeah. Like I would honestly, I would look into. I think it's called Flux.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
Flux.
yeah.
Flux is fantastic. It's a very good game to look into for stuff like this.
no, yeah, I've played Flux. It's a good one. It's a good one for sure.
But yeah, I would
yeah.
not just say, "Oh, you random people on the internet, make up how you can just change the rules," because that's gonna end that.
That's gonna get you
Yeah,
sued.
Right.
I wouldn't go that far.
Maybe sued
Oh,
on
man.
Judge Judy.
Well,
Anyway.
Sure.
but yeah, no, that's the gist of it for now.
Very cool. Very cool. It sounds like a fun party game. It wasn't too complicated once you got past a few points. I was able to follow it for the most part.
Yay.
I think the bit
deafened yourself, Jesse.
Okay. Yeah.
He's not going to be able to figure that out.
Just text him, somebody. Yeah. Okay, I think he figured it out. Or maybe just someone telling me deafened himself. Anyway, the thing was good. The one thing I think definitely needs more fleshing out is the sorts of things and ways you're going to be able to bend the rules. As well as really getting your physical challenge situation figured out, because I feel like you need to decide if this is a table game or a field game, right? Like it really can't be both. You're gonna need space for things or you're not, right? So
I mean, I could have like a deck of cards that's like it could be flexible in that realm of how much space do you have? Are we just indoors, and have maybe like a symbol of like, hey, take out these challenge cards if you don't have the space for it.
I would make that a upgrade pack. So you make it so it's an indoor thing only, and then have an outdoor upgrade pack.
Money, yeah. I like it.
All right, I was doing audio stuff. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yep.
I can hear you now. You're still quiet, like I said, but you're back though. So
I'm gonna have to figure out what that's up with. But I was gonna say from the point earlier, because I was deafened, so I haven't heard what you guys were talking about for the past few minutes. A way to balance the rule change thing is not making it a part of the main deck, where it's just completely random, but rather making it where you have to buy it with points. that way, whenever the rules change, people can
That's
say,
smart.
"Look at them, they did that."
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
That adds more agency
yeah,
to
that-
rule changes.
Yeah, so like they could use their influence tokens or their. Maybe it's just points and that's not like two separate things. I don't know.
Because then you could do something like you can get 2 cards each round as opposed to everyone else, right? Or something of that nature,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you did buy upgrades
maybe
basically.
make it so that,
Yeah,
or maybe
yeah.
have
So
it so
for
that's
that,
like in your hand, and they have to like pay so much dependent on how big of a change it is to actually play it.
Yeah, I was also thinking of having like essentially like a you stepped right into my trap, kind of like trap cards, almost like in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like if someone across the table does a thing to trigger this, then they get a penalty.
Falling into the classic.
I was actually thinking something like that would work really well for this type of game too. Like having a card that you just lay down and then can reveal if somebody does a particular thing. That feels very much in the vibe of this game.
Yeah. I just don't know. Would that be a separate card type, or could that fall under what I've already established?
I think trap
If it
cards
wasn't
could be
in the main
different.
deck, it could be with the rule.
What's it, Joel?
It could.
It could be in the rule
I
changes.
said
is what
if you
Joel
are
said.
in the main deck, you could put it in the same deck as the rule changes. Rule changes
Okay.
and trap make up one deck. If you were going to separate them.
Yeah.
So in order to draw from
good.
in order to draw from the rule change trap deck, you would have to actually like purchase it. Is what you're saying, Joel? Right? You would have to purchase a
and
draw.
you might get a rule change. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then whatever you put it down face down so that no one else gets to see it until you're ready to.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
I do like.
Oh, that's super smart.
Sorry,
because you could
Joel.
hold
What
a
was
rule
that?
change. Because you could hold a rule change.
Okay, so what I said was when you buy a card from the extra deck, you might get a rule change, but you also might get a trap card, and you put it face down in front of you after you check it. So you might have a trap, or you might have a rule change, and you know, but no one else knows.
Yes. I like the idea that this could be like you could call that the extras deck, and that could be maybe a separate component that you could add on to the base game.
I feel like it's an interesting enough mechanic. I mean, the game is your working title is literally called Rules Lawyer. You're talking like you're dealing with the rules of the game. I feel like some element of that should be with the game itself, like with the base game itself, but then having an additional pack that has like have the game breaking pack that just has really crazy rule changes and obviously overpowered trap cards that people can throw in.
Yeah. I do like the agency that gives.
I have a name for a card. One card needs to be the "You are technically correct," the best kind of correct. From Futurama.
You are technically correct. Would this be a rules change one?
No, this might be one that would let you
win an argument automatically.
Like, yes.
Oh.
or have it be that even if you lose, you still win. Like not win, but like you might you like.
You just lost the debate, but you can throw your card down and say, "Well, I'm technically correct." Right?
That's kind of correct. You get points as if you won, even though you didn't win.
Yeah.
Not.
I immediately I'm thinking of Brendan playing this card of you might have won, but I don't care.
I feel like I should be insulted.
No, that is a compliment in my book. All right.
Never have I been so offended by something I 100% agree with.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Lots of fun ideas here. Really appreciate it, guys.
You heading out? Or are you gonna hang until your mom comes?
Yeah. Well, my mom is here. I think she disappeared into the other room. So I'm.
All right. Well, you figure that
Leave.
out.
Go
Part
spend
out.
time with your mom.
Yep.
Go
The
spend time with your mom, dude.
Just killed a man.
all right. And we're doing Bohemian Rhapsody here. All right, man. We'll see you.
Bye, y'all.
All right.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
So I was thinking we would do John and then Ian next, if everyone's okay with that. As far as order, then we'll get some more people, see how things are going. I wanted to make sure Ian heard John because he was here with me and Brendan and Daniel last time and had some really cool stuff. I'd love for people to for you to update people on sort of where you've been going. You've been unemployed, you said, and you've been working really hard to get some stuff going as far as stories, and you've made some big progress. Do you mind updating some people on your progress in that regard before you start your story? You don't have to go into huge detail, but yeah.
Yes. So I'm writing a serial that I'm going to start publishing on Royal Road under the pen name Jonathan Schleprock starting at the beginning of next month. Its first book is called Paladin, and I read the first chapter last month on here to you guys, and it was Brandon who requested that I read one of my action sequences, which is what I'm going to read. It's actually chapter 36, so I'll give you guys a quick kind of context of it. Basically, it takes place 500 years after we have a nuclear war, and in that nuclear war, we punch holes into where the fallen angels hid from God's basically God's grace. Like they hid away, and that's where they made demons, and basically our concept of hell is, and they kind of spilled over into our world. And what God did is he bestowed the Holy Spirit into chosen warriors, the paladins, to combat the demons so that it could kind of go back to status quo so that Revelations could happen. So Revelations hasn't happened.
Wait. Revelation. It is singular. Revelation. That really gets on my nerves.
Yeah. Well, hasn't happened.
Yep.
So
Yep, we got you.
Context of this is the Paladin's name is Draka. He was given lands and he moved into this small village called Talcro. He's his neighbors is just a simple farm family, and they kind of befriended him, but the village itself kind of wants him to move out, and not really important for what's going on in the sequence. But the eldest daughter is Maud, and her younger brother is Alden. And she had just gotten a visit from Lilith moments before this happens. And I kind of want you to bear with me. This is the only time in the entirety of the first book that I describe as armor. And there's a reason for me going into the detail of it, but I do go into detail of it kind of like Batman putting on his batsuit. So it's, yeah. So
extensive.
Yeah, a bit, yeah. It's also kind of, I didn't really go into detail of it in the second book, which I recently just finished as well. I punched out 75,000 words this month. Mod leapt nearly half. Mod leapt half. Sorry, my
Yeah, no
stutter.
problem. Take your time.
Maud leapt nearly half of the ladder to get to Alden. She shook him, called his name. It was her kicking his side that finally woke him. Grab your spear. We're going to Draka. What's happening? Alden rubbed at his eyes. Maud stood on her toes to be sure she had latched her window shut. Just get up, I'm getting Ma and Pa. A screeching owl turned her to the garden window. It was closed. She let out a sigh of relief and started for the bedroom door. An owl thudded into the garden window. It scratched the glass, flapping its wings to stay afloat in it. Maud froze, red and yellow eyes, dark feathers. What is that? Alden took a step from his bed with his spear in hand. Maud tried to breathe. She tried to move. A few steps and she would be at her parents' door. A few steps and she could get all of them to Draka. Draka would protect all of them. He would save her and them. She knew he would, if she could get her feet to move forward. The owl screeched. It clawed at the window. A talon caused the window to crack in a web. Maud's feet drew her backwards. A bloodied arrow penetrated through the owl and the glass. Blood dripped from its jagged point into the shelf of herbs. The owl was pinned to the window, impaled. Maud grabbed Alden, who had come to her side with the spear ready like he had seen the villagers that night, and she pulled him to her. Her fingers clawed at his shirt. She would have climbed him if she could get her muscles to let her. She was trembling. He wasn't. Draka, he pointed out the window, beyond the impaled owl. 2 arms. The Holy Spirit's command thundered through Draka as he lifted a spoonful of stew that had made him melt at its warm taste. Maud was such a great cook. He could never have enough. But the spoon dropped from his fingers and he rushed to the board to below. His years in the Holy Lands had made donning his plate armor in moments like this much easier, faster than it would be for others. Sabatons over his boots with their pleated and heeled bottoms, with the greaves smelted perfectly from blessed titanium to form snugly, tailored to the shape of his shins and calves. Formed titanium plates called cuisses. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Fitted to his thighs with metallic clips. Yeah. Rising nearly to his hips, which were covered with long plates on either side, linked to others that protected his groin he had to step into. Spiked poulains to go over his knees with interlocked plates, allowing him to tighten them and bend his knees. His breast and back plates still linked to the pauldrons of interlocked titanium strips that covered his shoulders. A 7-pointed golden star over the lower half of a red cross covered the front of his breastplate. 2 plates slid tightly into grooves along the edges of the breast and back plates to cover the belts he tightened, to protect under his arms. Rear braces over his upper arms, van braces for his lower arms. Cutters for his elbows, spiked to match the poulains on his knees. He snapped the bever into place over his shoulders to cover his neck. Dracker pulled his thick gauntlets on, closing and opening his fist with wiggling fingers to ensure he had them on correctly. Then, finally, his spiked helmet that completely covered his head, held in place by webbed leather and silk under his chin, with only a narrow slit in the front for his eyes and nose in the shape of a cross. He linked his sheathed sword on hooks and grooves on his right side. He stringed his bow and pulled the quiver of arrows over and across his shoulders. The floorboards creaked with each hurried step he took toward the door from his weight. He grabbed his tall titanium spear and shield, shaped wide at the top and curved to a sharp point at the bottom, with the same star and cross as his breastplate on his way out the door to get Vigra. He didn't go to the stable door for her. Instead, he went to the shack and uncovered her horse plates, blankets, and saddle, whistling for her. Vigra was just as quick to obey as he had been, with a hard kick that sent the gate flying across the road. She stood still as a statue as he put the long steel patrol on her neck and chest, flanchards of interlocked plates for her sides, a crupper over a thick blanket that protected her rear and thighs, and interlocked plates to go over and snap into place over her tail. He strapped the many plates that formed the crenée, covering her neck and mane over another blanket. Then the steel and leather saddle, followed by her very own helmet to cover from her ears to between her nose, complete with her very own thick horns that were blunted on their points. Her blue eyes were alert, focused. He rubbed her with each piece he belted to her, giving both reassurances and his silent goodbyes, and kissed her nose before he mounted her. This wasn't their first battle together by 100-fold. She understood exactly what was to come. He put his spear in the slot on the side of her crupper so that it leaned toward their front at an angle that made it easy for him to grab quickly. He straightened his back, lifted his chin upright to see ahead of them, toward the village which the commanding presence within him indicated without a word, and directed Vigora to step forward. Hold. Draco halted Vigora. Ahead, he looked over the road, along the tree lines on either side of the field spanning from the road and into the village. No fires, no people, silence in the dim moonlight. An owl screeched. Just for context, Draco has a vow of silence, so when I'm speaking, it's the Holy Spirit in his head. Draco lifted his bow from his shoulder and a barbed arrow from his quiver. He didn't notch it. Not yet. He watched and waited, watched as owls flooded the air from the trees surrounding the Cleveland house to cover the roof and circle above it. He asked for true sight to see their true shapes through the dim light. They weren't owls. At least 24 feather-winged, horned women with bird-like legs and claws all around, above and across the Cleveland house. They were waiting, like him, for the command to attack. Those that were grounded in perching crouches took flight to join the rest as one, darker and emanating with an aura of darkness instead of the red of the others, flew a bit away and hovered in the air. That one shall be spared. Expel her. Slay her legion. One of the harpies swooped to the garden window. He could see it trying to break through. Now, Draco let the first arrow fly at that one. It hung lifeless from the window. Vigora charged across the field at his command. Light burst outward from him, bright as from within him, to surround them in its glow. He lifted the spear. The harpy swarm went higher and drove toward them. Draco threw the spear and drew his sword fluidly. As one fell, the other harpies came at him. The first few burst to ash in their dive into the aura. The aura dimmed. Draco swung his sword at the next. He lifted his shield to batter those whose talons reached for him on the other side. Vigora drew the swarm to narrow as they reached for him by keeping at her fastest. She nimbly leapt and changed directions at random, encircling the field. The aura dissipated. Draco struck one after another with his shield. Thunderous explosions of light blasted through those unlucky enough to feel his slams. His blade spun and arched in his swings, sending limbs and wings twisting through the air in their wake. The Dark One called out from above them. The swarm thickened at its ends. They came down on him in mass. It felt like hundreds were striking at him at once, dipping, clawing, rising out of his reach. Too many at once. He tried to strike with his sword, but it was too little, too slow. Talons hooked into his breastplate with the sizzle of the holy ointment he cleaned it with, burning them. He was lifted from the saddle. The armor, the chainmail, and quilted coat beneath cushioned the impact, but all the air in his lungs was thrown from him. He rolled as the Holy Spirit strengthened him. He made the thunderous explosion of God's power erupt on the barrage of swooping talons from above. He felt his blade cut flesh in his roll. His shield struck bones with loud cracks. He was on his feet. The speared harpy was a bound away from him, rising from where it was impaled into the dirt. Draco charged for it. They bore down on him with their numbers. Thunderous claps of exploding light. Shield bashes that sent them whirling away from him. His blade took limbs and sprayed Icarus gore. He reached the spear. They came down on him all at once, crushed him into the dirt, prone. He felt their talons scraping at his plates. Points pierced into his back. Teeth sank in to jerk and pull them from him, only able to shake him and slam into the hard, suffocating mud repeatedly. He heaved. He could smell his death grappling at him as he struggled to breathe. His vision was clouded by mud bulging through the cross of his helmet. They were pinning him. Voices screeched in his ear of his failures. He saw her blood-smeared, fanged smile in front of him from long ago, his dagger in her heart, her eyes filled with love looking up at him. No. Draco brushed it away. They will not take me like that. I will die as I am. His grip on his sword was jerked loose. One of them tried to stab his shoulder with it, but he moved just in time for the sharp edge to scrape his bever and helmet instead. He sent another explosion outward, but it was too weak. He was getting weak. His muscles were beginning to ache with exhaustion. None of them were deterred. None took flight against the searing burn of the light that charred and reddened their pale skins. Vigor rammed through them. Her hooves narrowly, purposely, missed him to trample the ones that didn't take flight fast enough. Draco was on her before he made air return to his lungs. She carried him to the spear. He grabbed it as they passed. The swarm tried to keep up with her charge for the Dark One, but they weren't nearly fast enough. Vigora pressed herself faster, carrying him beyond the speed of the wind, beyond the speed of any charge for his target. The Dark One screeched and dove for the trees. The swarm rose high into the sky. Draco spurred Vigora to go to her limits, to go as fast as her legs could carry her. He bent his legs and widened his knees. She understood what he intended. Smite her to whence she came. Draco let the shield fall from his arm and launched himself from the saddle. Vigora turned from beneath him to circle around. He gripped the spear with both hands, lifted it high over his head. The handle twisted and the spikes protruded. Holy light enveloped him, carried him into a high arch for the dark creature. It turned to meet him with a wide-eyed, fanged screech. The light thrust him at her. She was a black cloud of twisting tendrils, right as his spear would have impaled her. Its tip stabbed deep into the dirt, a thrust that would have driven her down regardless of her strength or stance. But she had returned before he reached her. Barely. The remaining swarm was bolstered by their lady's defeat. They dove for him. He charged with the spear. Vigora was charging to meet their flanks. They both struck the diving swarm with precision. He clubbed them with the spiked end. His legs carried him in leaps and tumbles from their strikes. Vigora rammed them out of the air into his swings with high jumps. They crisscrossed each other as he waded through them. He threw the spear once he had his shield. Each time he battered his way through them to reach where it pinned the harpy it had killed, and threw it again until the last of them dissipated in the same way as their leader. He and Vigora slid to a halt near each other. Cleanse thyself. Draco gathered his sword and mounted Vigora. He squeezed his knees for her to return home. It would take all morning to wash the demon's blood from their armors. He grit his teeth. He was out of holy oil. Until the priests arrived, his armor and weapons would be near useless if he faced another demon. If he had even a drop left in the bottle, he would have to choose. Which would he anoint? A single plate of his armor, of Vigora's, or one of his weapons? He was now vulnerable against their kind. Alright. So, thoughts?
Hey, feedback
Baller.
all around.
Did anyone else hear The Last Stand playing just now?
In the heart of Holy See.
Pretty much.
Yes.
I enjoy your action. I think that you're doing a good job at keeping the pace moving forward very quickly. One of the things that I'm personally wanting more of, but it's so tiny and minute, I think that I might be wrong based on like what you're wanting to do versus, just ideas, but I'm craving a little bit more of what our main character is actually five sensing, touching, smelling, seeing, tasting, etc. Just a little bit. But there is the stuff there, and you give a lot of adjectives to make me feel the place. I feel what's happening, I feel the place, but I want to see it through his eyes as opposed to just knowing that these things are the way they are. So maybe just tying some of the adjectives you already have more directly to how the character is sensing it would be helpful. But that's the only criticism I have. I think the action is very good. So, other thoughts?
It is really good. I like the way that you write action sequences. I'm just gonna echo what Joshua said. How does it feel to slice through demon flesh? How does it feel to get bitten? How does it feel to You don't, the sweat that's pouring off of him, all of that stuff that's going on in his head
Sensory
and his
information.
body.
Yes, sensory
Yeah.
information. Yeah. But Brendan,
So, in my observation of combat sequences, there are two general ways people handle it. The first, we'll call it your example, where you give enough details for someone to kind of visualize it, but not enough details so that it plays out for somebody who has a very visual mind, like a movie, right? You give enough data of what they are doing, not specifics. The other way of doing it is by giving a blow by blow of everything that happened. R.A. Salvatore does this with his Drizzt novels. I kind of did that in something I shared with the Broodcast a few months back that I don't think necessarily a lot of people saw.
I did.
Was
Yeah,
the
Joel did. Yeah.
graphic novel thing?
It was
Yeah.
it was with when Voss dueled Dorlick, and it was a sword and shield duel between two people.
Yeah.
That one I actually went out of my way. I looked up actual medieval combat sequences between two sword and shield users, and I full scale just ripped one and wrote it out as what happened, right? With like the actual, like, he trapped the sword, he moved to the right, and then he rammed his shield into it so that the guy, and like blah blah blah, right? I think, and this might be, and take everything I say with 10,000 pounds of salt. I think the reason Joshua and Ian are asking for more sensory information is because you're not doing that blow by blow specific style. You're doing this sort of a more loose, like, you describe that the talons like dig into his back, but you don't say where on his back: upper back, lower back, mid. Does it scrape against his shoulder blade,
pulling him down? Yeah.
Is it pulling it? You're not. You say his horse was jumping and ramming them, like doing this awesome thing where they jump and slam, and then he bats it out of the air. But is he using it? Maybe I missed this, but is he doing it two-handed? Is he doing it one-handed? You're saying his shield. He missed his shield. He picks up his shield. Does he roll to pick up his shield? Does he like scoop it off the ground in one smooth motion? Right? Because, and that's fine. I'm not saying you should add more detail. I'm saying I think they're looking for that detail just because they want, because the action isn't as fleshed out, they want a different
Emotional
sense,
aspect.
right?
Yeah. This is the difference between. Yeah. Sorry.
If that makes sense. Now again, I'm not a professional author. I'm not publishing anything. Take everything I say with Polish salt mines levels of salt, right? But I think that's what's going on. Echo everything they said. You have the only thing that confused me was the beginning, before you got to him suiting up. I know you explained a little bit about that, but this person was trying to get them out, was trying to get this other person out. There was an owl.
The chapter before, Maud. So the whole story prior to this is basically really Maud is she's 21, and in the village that she's in, once you reach 18, it's like, okay, you're to be married off, and they have, because their area, there's more women than there are men, they have a thing called a ribbon dance, and essentially you go on, the women dance the ribbon, and there's a guy tied to the pole, and whoever is the last one with the ribbon at the end of the dance marries the guy. And she has nerve damage from falling into the river when she was a young teenager, so she's really shaky and hasn't been able to win on the ribbon dance. So she's unmarried. When he moves in, they see that he doesn't have a wife, so her father has been trying to kind of push her on him. And right before she went to sleep, she was like, okay, sure, I'll, maybe I'll see if I can get him to marry me. Right after she goes to sleep, Lilith visits her and pretty much scares her and threatens her. And directly afterwards is when she wakes up and their house is being swarmed by screeching owls.
Night Owl, yep.
And this is the mythological Lilith.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I based it off of all the references that I found on those
Sure.
legends.
Sure.
So
All right. One thing I was going to mention. Oh yeah, this is very brief, Joel. Let me just say this really briefly before I forget. I think Brendan. One of the things he's saying is, you can kind of do Attack of the Clones lightsaber battle where things are really dark and we're focused on the guys' faces and the emotion of the fight, which is kind of what Ian and I were looking for, versus going in and doing a full-on Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, Darth Maul, super choreographed, detailed sort of a thing. You know, the literary version of that, right? So anyway, Joel, go ahead.
So I noticed you had several instances where you were repetitive. So, like you said, you used the word garden window back to back. You said that attack was weak. He was getting weak, back to back. So I would go through it and look for some of that. You also used the word owl over and over and over and over again. You can mix that up by saying like the bird,
the predatory bird,
the feathered creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The raptor.
Instead of saying owl.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was one thing that I've been looking for in my books, which is why I'm tuned to find that sort of thing. Because I was really bad about it. Two other comments. The titanium armor and weapons is cool, but I wonder part of weapon. So two things with titanium. First off, it's very light, which means you can swing it faster. But then when it hits, it might not hit as hard. It might not penetrate as deep.
Yeah.
The other thing is you were talking about the puncturing the titanium, and I know what happens when titanium like shards. It burns. That might be a really interesting detail. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You kind of broke up. What were you saying about it?
So, one of the reasons that titanium is so expensive to buy titanium stuff is it's very dangerous to work with. If they when they're I'm being kittened. My wife just put all three of them on me. So it could start a fire if a shard sparks or whatever. And I'm not 100% sure on the details, but it like doesn't stop burning.
Would you like me to expound on this?
Go for it, Braden.
If you know more about the
So, whenever you're working with magnesium, potassium, or titanium, you're required to take extra precautions because I want to say it's 10 microns in size, the dust will self-ignite, and that very quickly spreads to the rest of the material. So a lot of those machine shops that do that require Class K fire extinguishers, which basically means we're not really putting out the fire, we're just separating the heat from everything else. And if you are working with titanium, which historically has happened, you can find even titanium suits of mail in the British Museum currently. They were very, very difficult to work with, though, because the scale would fly off and land in the forge and pop. So they would burn through wire like it was nobody's business. The other problem with titanium is how was it worked? I don't know if you've ever handled titanium, but it's very, very springy.
So the reason why I chose titanium was because like I had a titanium ring and I was told that they couldn't, like, if I ever got like my finger caught on something, they couldn't cut the ring off because they couldn't cut it. And my thought process was like, in order for his armor to be forged, it had to be drop forged. It was like really, really hard for them to get through. So my whole point was like demons could still get through it.
Gotcha. My question is, with them poking holes in this armor and ripping it apart, would there be any fear of the igniting? And would that be an interesting plot point?
Yeah, that would be a reason why he wouldn't use titanium. Honestly, I have to look up a different kind of metal because obviously with demons, that fire would be an issue.
I think he didn't know about the whole titanium lighting on fire thing.
That's
that is an obvious, like, that's not going to be a good idea.
You could technically still do titanium. So some of your more aircraft grade alloys of titanium are going to be completely suitable. They're going to be closer to 25% titanium, 75% steel. So basically a really, really lightweight, hard stainless steel. But technically any metal will ignite in the right temperature. It's just a matter of what are you... if you're wanting to go down that rabbit hole, you would basically have to invent some holy metal that
would be cool.
Gifted. It would be.
I mean, he, like, the lore that I have, their armor has to be specifically made in a specific place. They have to send for it to be made. They can't just have any blacksmith do it. It has to be drop forged.
Okay. So you might choose to do something like I don't know. This mountain in this region of wherever in the world has a specific quality of ore for this mineral that they found can actually be turned into. Here's one. They found a natural graphene mine, and they're turning it into armor. It's a long strand graphene that they can forge into armor.
Okay.
Not realistic, but it is real enough that people know.
I mean, if the world is ending, everything could be changing. You could totally do that in a fantasy setting. So
yeah, I mean, I could also have it so that they're just stripping old space shuttles.
What if there is a meteor that hit that God sent, full of
meteor?
this
Yeah,
special?
you could do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I haven't quite gotten to the point where I'm writing the third book right now, and one of the characters is being trained as a paladin. So that I'm getting to the point where she's going to be getting her armor. So I'll be definitely
working through that,
brainstorming how that. Yeah, and those are great suggestions. So I'll be thinking over and seeing what works with the type of world that I've created, because I'm trying to keep it very grounded in the idea of, for instance, like Strasbourg is still very much Strasbourg, but like we've built on top of what is already there. Like the Cathedral of Strasbourg was still the Cathedral of Strasbourg when I wrote it. So certain things are still there.
Makes sense. All right. We're gonna do Ian next. Jesse, would you be willing to give your update after that, and then we'll probably go to Joel, or Brendan. Either way. What, Brendan? You said you didn't want to go, so I was giving you time. Anyway,
I didn't want to go first. Go. Let's get Ian out of.
Well, Ian's next, regardless, and then you three can fight for it if you really want, or Alex or Braden, because they said they wanted to share too. So, any which way, we'll figure that out. Ian's next. You have the floor, sir.
So it's been so long. A few updates about my project, Heart of the Stars. I had a great idea for a prologue that I wanted to add in, so I started working on that this past week. If you would like me to read the prologue and the new first chapter, I can do that, or I can try to remember where we left off last time.
What is the prologue and the new first chapter like your normal length?
Yeah, they're the normal
together.
length.
Okay. Together they're combined about your normal length.
Yeah, the
Okay.
prologue is only like 2 pages.
Okay, sweet. I think that'd be cool. I'd say do what you're excited about. You know, if you're excited
Okay,
about the
let's do the
prologue,
prologue.
share the prologue.
So the prologue is going to sound really familiar because I basically took the first chapter and retooled it and made it make more sense in the narrative that I'm developing. I'm changing the whole origin story for the artifact that Eddie is given. It was originally going to be like a wedding gift, or not a wedding gift, a gift that his father gave his mother, and then they gave it to Eddie as like a token of their love for him. And then I thought, that's boring. I can do so much better than that. So I thought, what this book needs? Dinosaurs.
Yes.
Because dinosaur. That's why. So I'm not going to be able to actually get to the dinosaurs this week. Well, actually, yes, I am. But next time, we'll get into more detail on that. So, beginning the prologue. Dark. Darker than a moonless night in the Green Mountains. A darkness so thick, Eddie Small could almost feel it. It was like being smothered in a black sheet. Within that darkness, things moved. Eddie got the impression of huge spider-like forms moving in the darkness. Not that he could actually see them, but somehow he knew they were there, crawling in the dark. Eddie hated spiders almost as much as he hated Thorwald Van Horn, but that's a story for another time. He couldn't move, like a fly caught in a giant web. And the spiders drew nearer, venom dripping from their hungry fangs. And then he awoke. A blood-curdling scream, Eddie roused to full consciousness. A sigh of relief, he realized he was in his own room. His cat, Fred, stood at the foot of his bed, eyes wide with terror, back arched. The poor fellow must have had quite a shock that his favorite human would awake so suddenly and so violently at this time of night. In burst Eddie's father, Dr. Andrew Small, of the University of Vermont. His face was whiter than a powdered sugar donut. In his hand was a sword. Dr. Small, in addition to teaching astronomy, was also an expert swordsman and owner of several blades. Truly, the Renaissance man was Andrew Small. Behind him stood his wife Edith, armed with a somewhat more conventional weapon for this day and age, a baseball bat. "What's the matter?" asked Dr. Small, brandishing the sword. Nothing, replied Eddie. Just another nightmare. Andrew relaxed, sighing in relief, sheathing his sword. "Did you really have to bring that thing?" asked Edith. "Dear, a man who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed," replied Andrew. "Big talk for a man in checkered shorts," retorted Edith. Turning to her frightened son, she said, "Spiders again?" "Yeah," replied the frightened boy. "I wish they'd just stop happening." "I know, honey," said Edith, brushing the boy's russet hair. "Just a minute," said Andrew as he dashed from the room. Eddie and Edith looked at each other. Edith shrugged. Less than a second later, Andrew returned, bearing a long, narrow parcel. "I was going to wait until your birthday to give you this, but I think it's close enough," Andrew said as he handed over the package. Eddie ripped away the string and paper. Dr. Small did not see the point of colored wrapping paper, and neither did Eddie, revealing a short sword in a leather sheath. Eddie's face lit up. Is it? Asked Eddie, hesitating. It's sharp, said Dr. Small. Be very careful, said Edith. I will be, said Eddie. Don't ever draw it unless you intend to use it, said Dr. Small. Sleep with it next to your bed. When the nightmares come again, just reach for the sword. I will, said Eddie solemnly. I think I'm okay now. Good, said Edith. We love you, honey. She gently kissed the boy on the forehead before leaving the room. Fred, having gathered that the excitement was over, curled up next to the boy. Briefly petting the feline on the head, Eddie returned to slumber, dreaming of running through the woods and fighting dragons and other things that 11-year-old boys dream of. Fred, meanwhile, remained awake, standing watch over the lad, as was his sworn duty. Fred was no ordinary cat, but that was a secret that he kept to himself. Indeed, due to his immense size and coloration, Fred more resembled a tiger than anything tame. Fred was the only one who knew Eddie's dreams were more than dreams, but due to the unfortunate circumstance of being a cat, he had no means of warning the family that something terrible was about to happen. It was exasperating, but it was his duty to stand his post, and he would sacrifice all 9 of his lives before he allowed anything to happen to Eddie. Chapter 1. The state of Vermont is not known for having perfect April afternoons. More often than not, it's either snowing or, worse, freezing rain. Spring comes rather late compared to other parts of the country. I know you're probably shocked by the fact that there are places where snow is not only possible but likely in the month of April, but this is the case in much of the Northeast. In fact, it has been known to snow occasionally in May, but I digress. This was one of those extremely rare, ideal April afternoons. The sun was bright and cheery. The temperature was warm enough that one could go out in a t-shirt. The birds were singing. Pennants waved in the breeze. Andrew stood at his post by the fire pit, dressed in proper 14th century garb, tunic and hose, leather shoes with pointed tips, a hood draped down his shoulders. The scent of savory meats filled the backyard. Fred sat at his side, hoping for a morsel of meat, which he would almost assuredly get. Edith placed many delightful treats on the folding tables. Cookies, cupcakes, fruit salads, and more. She was dressed in a simple peasant dress, her curly, frizzled hair gathered up in a wimple. She gently kissed her husband on the back of the neck before dashing into the kitchen again to fetch some pies. This was Eddie's birthday every year, ever since the age of 5. He always requested a medieval fair be held in the backyard. This desire never changed. He stood at the other end of the lawn from his father, lawn bowling with some friends from church, when there came a knock at the gate. "Who goes there?" asked Eddie in his most authoritative voice. "Santa Claus," replied the voice. "Who do you think? It's Granddad." Eddie ran to the gate and opened it for his grandfather, Charles Big Chuck Small, and his grandmother, Marie. Big Chuck's eyes were aglow with joy upon seeing his grandson. He was dressed in a medieval monk's habit, complete with quarterstaff and sandals. Marie was dressed as a medieval noblewoman with many colored fabrics and an elaborate wimple. Chuck enveloped the boy in his long, lanky arms. Mary did the same, kissing him tenderly on both cheeks. "Mom, Dad," said Andrew. "So glad you could make it." He embraced his parents, as did Edith. "We wouldn't miss it," Marie said, her quaint Quebecois accent. Let me read that again. "We would not miss it," Marie said in her quaint Quebecois accent. She and Edith greeted one another in French, engaging in a little small talk. Eddie understood little of it. "I've been all over the world, son, and I wouldn't miss this day for any of it," added Chuck with a grin, his white beard bristling with pleasure. "Look what Dad gave me," said Eddie, holding aloft the sword. "Hold everything," said Chuck, taking hold of the blade. unsheathed the sword, examining it in the sunlight. Isn't this the one I gave you? He asked, turning to Andrew, who nodded with a smile. Chuck returned the blade to its sheath and then handed it to Eddie. Do you know the swordsman's creed? Asked the elder. Yes, sir, Eddie said, beaming. Say it for me. Eddie repeated the creed as he had heard it 1,000 times before from his father. I am a swordsman. I will wield my blade with honor and truth. I do not draw it in vain. May he who draws it in vain fall
Oracular pig.
in haste.
Jump back about
He who draws
2 or 3 sentences, I think.
Should I just start it from the beginning?
Paragraph? Yeah, or back a
Start,
paragraph.
start from the creed, from saying of the creed.
Chuck returned the blade to its sheath and then handed it to Eddie. Do you know the swordsman's creed? He asked the elder. Yes, sir, Eddie said, beaming. Say it for me. Eddie repeated the creed as he had heard it 1,000 times from his father. I am a swordsman. I will wield my blade with honor and truth. I do not draw it in vain. May he who draws in vain fall upon his own blade. I draw in defense of life. I do not draw it in haste. May he who draws in haste lose the strength of his grip. I draw in time of need. I do not draw it in anger. May the blade of him who draws in anger be dulled. I draw in defense of peace. I pledge my sacred honor to follow the way of the blade with skill and integrity. Good, said Chuck, ruffling the boy's curly hair. Eddie grinned broadly. There came another knock at the gate. Speak, friend, and enter, said Eddie. In came Eddie's closest friend and companion on many adventures, Bucky Towns. Bucky was a short youth about Eddie's age, slightly stout with large buck teeth that gave him his nickname. His real name was Julius, but he hated to be called that. He came dressed in armor he made of cardboard spray-painted a metallic sheen. Once upon a time, he'd had a higher quality suit of armor, which he and his father had made, but that was before he moved in with his Aunt Harriet, who saw no value in it and threw it away. But this is a story for another time. Bucky grinned at Eddie, showing his large teeth. Happy birthday, he said, handing the boy a small shield made of scrap wood, painted green with a red dragon. Wow, thank you, said Eddie, accepting the gift. It'll go with my sword. Eddie drew the blade. Bucky stared in wonder. Careful, it's sharp, Eddie said. Wicked, Bucky exclaimed. May I hold it? Eddie carefully offered him the hilt. It was my dad's. Bucky looked up and down the sword before handing it back to its owner. A trumpet suddenly sounded from the backyard. My lords and ladies, said Dr. Andrew Small. These may now begin. Huzzah! Exclaimed Chuck. Removing the sword belt and placing it on the ground, Eddie then replaced it with a different sword belt. This one had a dummy blade made of wood, which he would need in the tournament. Lords and ladies, I invite you to view this spectacle, said Chuck. My son, Andrew of Small, and his son, my grandson, who is on this day, the 22nd of April, the year of our Lord 2025, 11 years of age. I, having been your places.
Okay, pause. Having been is where you
having been christened. Having been christened Edmund Small, shall engage in honorable combat. Gentlemen, take your places. Eddie and his father faced off. Eddie made the first move, striking low for the legs, blocking a strike with his shield. Andrew dodged and struck again, stepping around his son. Eddie made a slashing blow to the midsection, which Andrew blocked, countering with a strike to Eddie's arm. While other matches were always controlled, Andrew did not want to spare his son the real rigors of real swordplay. I said real twice. They never went full force, but you could definitely tell when they were hit. They had the bruises to prove it. The fight went on, back and forth like this, until Eddie landed a blow that, in a real tournament, with live blades, would have killed Andrew. Chuck called the fight to a close, declaring Eddie the winner. Bucky then stepped forward. What just happened? Bucky then stepped forward, brandishing his wooden blade. "Ah, we have another challenger," declared Chuck. "Fighters, take your places." The two squared off, and the match began. Bucky struck the first blow, missing Eddie entirely. Eddie ducked below his guard, nearly slashing his knee. Bucky stepped out of the way just in time, circling around Eddie. Eddie whirled around, hitting Bucky in the forearm. Bucky retaliated with a headshot, grazing Eddie's helmet. Eddie thrust his blade in, sliding past Bucky's ribs. The audience clapped, but the match was not over yet. Neither of them had struck a killing blow. On they went, panting with the effort of the fight, for almost 5 minutes. Finally, Bucky faked a strike to the head, causing Eddie to lift his sword. The boy then ducked under and struck him in the center of his chest. Chuck declared Bucky the winner of the tournament. The audience cheered. The boys shook hands, embracing each other. It was now time for the feast.
Great. All right.
Wait, not done yet.
Not quite. Okay, I thought you were. My bad.
I made a typo and I had to fix it, otherwise I'd go crazy.
Yep.
Day became night. Most of the revelers had left, apart from Eddie's grandparents and Bucky. The gifts had been opened, songs sung, cake enjoyed. Edith and Marie had begun cleaning up the dirty plates and cups and tidying the lawn. Unlike many daughters-in-law, Edith adored Marie, and Marie treated Edith like another daughter. This was partly because Edith spoke fluent French. Andrew sat by the fire pit, watching the fire burn down to ashes. Eddie sat on the lawn, softly stroking Fred, who lay next to him, purring loudly. Bucky lay on the ground, stuffed with pies and cakes, dozing. "Did you have a good birthday?" asked a voice from behind. Eddie looked up into the grinning face of his grandfather. He nodded. "It was a great birthday." "And it's not over yet." Sitting down, Chuck produced a plain brown leather bag from behind his back. It looked old, very old. He handed the bag to Eddie. "This was given to me by my grandfather, and now I'm giving it to you," said Chuck. Eddie marveled at the gift, as though he was receiving some holy relic. Fred got up and stared at the bag. He knew what was inside. Being a cat, of course, he couldn't say anything, but he knew even better than Chuck knew. "Open it," said the old man. Opening the old worn buckles, Eddie lifted the flap of the bag. Inside were old photographs, a leather-bound book, an old pouch.
Okay. Come on. An old pouch. There we go. An old pouch is where it left off.
An old pouch and something else. A claw of some enormous beast. Marveled at the claw. "Where did this come from?" he asked. "I would tell you," said Chuck, "but it's really better if you find out for yourself. It's all in the journal. It looks like a claw from..." He examined the photographs.
For
a dromaeosaur.
Okay.
You need me to repeat anything else?
Just from there. It looks like a claw for a dromaeosaur. Go ahead.
I am sorry, everybody. That
okay,
I don't know
internet.
what's going on.
It's okay. We're still following.
It looks like a claw from a dromaeosaur, exclaimed Bucky, having woken from his slumber. Eddie examined the photographs. That's your great-great-grandfather, Daniel Small, said Chuck, pointing at the mustached man in a pith helmet. He was a geologist at the university. He and John Maxwell mapped out the northeastern Himalaya region near the border of Bhutan back in 1935. That's where I got the rock gene from. Your dad, however, looked up instead of down. The majority of them, the photos, take photos of men in mountainous or forested settings. A few photos, however, were much more mysterious. One appeared to show a couple of dinosaurs drinking from a stream. Are those? Asked Eddie hesitantly. Chuck nodded. Read all about it in the journal, the old man replied. So this is all mine? Asked Eddie, almost afraid to keep the relics. Yes, affirmed Chuck. Eddie grinned. Thanks, Grandpa.
From Thanks, Grandpa.
Thanks, Grandpa. I'm getting really tired of this.
It's okay.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa. You're welcome,
exactly.
kid.
Good one. Yes.
The lad's hair. He rose up and strolled away toward the smoldering embers of the fire. Eddie and Bucky continued to investigate the contents of the bag. Eddie took out the last item in the bag. It was a small pouch, a little bigger than his palm, tied up with a rotting leather cord. It seemed strangely heavy. Untying the bundle, Eddie looked with wonder on the thing in his hand. It was an irregularly shaped object, not a stone, but not anything Eddie could identify. It's
not anything Eddie could identify.
It seemed to have a metallic quality to it. There was a faint glow. Ever-changing patterns worked their way over the multifaceted surface. What is this thing? He asked no one in particular. The thing tingled his fingertips. He knew then that whatever he was holding was powerful, magical even, and very, very old.
Okay, there we go. Very nice. Way to work through it. A lot more stuff happening in the open. I feel like it might be slightly too much, but I really do like having the action, the sword fight situation, you're establishing the world a little bit better immediately. It feels more like later when I first heard this, the earlier version of this part of the story, I was thinking very Lemony Snicket. And this is a lot more like what we're getting later on with a lot of the goofy stuff with our wizard friend and Fred, and it's setting up this world a lot more like the way we know it now. So I think it's a good addition overall. Other people's thoughts?
I agree. Someone here thinks there should be more parts with Fred.
Everyone wants more.
You're holding
Fred.
a cat. It's not fair.
I loved Big Chuck Smalls. I think that's hilarious.
That was really good.
I really like the way you described the meteor piece. I before it's always just been this random chunk of rock, and it didn't really have a great description. Now it has. Ooh, what is this? We want to know more.
John.
I also really do like that his grandfather gives it to him as a gift.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that works really well.
John.
The when you first started and you introduced I think it was his grandfather who was the swordsman.
No, that was his father.
His father. Okay. With that, I think that's something that you could show more later as you go along instead of just coming right out with it. Like it's one of those things that just it feels out of place to me. And
Well, you're wrong. First of all,
okay.
Thank you,
there's
Ian.
no explanation. There's no
Gentle as
explanation.
always.
There's no explanation for why he comes in with a sword. Nobody does that except
Right.
people who own swords. He gives Eddie a sword. Nobody does that. So, yeah, he's an accomplished swordsman. I have to mention that from the beginning to help people understand that this guy is not a crazed lunatic.
He's sharing something with his son that he appreciates. Yeah. So I think that's important.
Okay.
The other way you could go through that is what was his job again? Remind me of father's job.
He's the professor, right? He's a professor at
He's
the
a
university.
professor of astronomy.
Astronomy. Okay. So yeah, if it was a professor of like medieval literature or something, it could work. But like, yeah, I agree with you. That's probably the best way to allay, because you're doing this for more of a middle grade reader anyway.
Yeah.
And so you really do have to convince the moms that we're not just handing out swords like the Lady of the Lake over here.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Would I love
That's okay.
Would I love it? Would I love it if he were a professor of medieval literature? Yeah, sure. That would be great. In fact, it might actually work better with the story. Because originally
I'm not sure that it actually would work better with the story, because if he's a professor of medieval studies or medieval literature or something like that, he's looking at the medieval times in his studies. If he is just a medievalist like C.S. Lewis, he could have gone a different direction in that he started valuing the things that the medievals did value, one of which was astronomy. It was one of the four, it was part of the quadrivium. So I think that actually makes perfect sense for him to be an astronomer, because that's what the medievals were.
So medievalism could be like a minor thing for him, right? He minored in that, and he teaches in, like, he subs in that, right? He subs in medieval literature.
Yeah, like,
you know,
his passion is with the medieval times. He wants to get back to that understanding of things. He sees the value that they had there. But he's actually going one step farther. He's not just studying the medieval times. He's actually studied it enough that he's like, oh, that's super cool. Astronomy, I'm into that.
Right.
As a medievalist.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's some good character dev right there.
Oh, I like that. I like that very much.
Other thoughts?
Experienced the beginning of that story before, but it flows really well. Like, for somebody who has not, I've had no introduction to this before. Now I feel like, all right, I know where we're at, and it's making more sense for later on. I think it's
because you
I think
came
it's
in later in the story, right, Jesse?
Mm-hmm. At least a few chapters in. It was like while they were out in the canyon or something.
The one thing I will say that I might consider adding at some point in time is you have it very clear that Fred hates the body that he's in, being a cat. At some point in time, you should have him come across a TV that's playing the Aristocats, particularly the "Everybody Wants to Be a Cat" song.
He's like, nope.
And have him make some form of comment about that.
Just some aside about his thought process. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I thought Fred really was liked being a cat and thought of himself as a superior being from the rest of the book, which most cats do.
Well, see, here's the thing. He is a cat. He's a and I explain the mechanics of this later. He's actually a starship pilot.
Yep.
Because they
As every
figured
cat is.
the alien being figured out that cats, particularly orange cats, were very adept at piloting starships and not really good at much else. And Fred wishes that he was a lion.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
He wants to be a lion, but he's stuck in this tiny cat body, and he is really upset.
So maybe
about
he's
it.
looking at Aristocats and he's thinking,
this
why can't I be
conversation-
happy like them? Why can't I be
This
content like they are?
conversation. This
What-
conversation reminds me so much of Norm Macdonald's moth joke.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Sometimes I feel like I'm a spider hanging over my web, even though I'm a moth.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Go ahead, Ian. Or he's paused again. There he is.
No.
What were you saying? You're back.
Shortwave. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. Anyway, I appreciate all the feedback. I really do. It's helped a lot with this story. It's moved things along. So anyway, next time I'll actually get into the contents of the journal. I've written about half of it, and I'll get to the other half this coming week or month or whenever I have time and ideas. So anyway, I'm gonna have to. Yeah.
Oh, I just want to say, like always, I love this story, and I cannot wait for it to be finished. Not in a bad way, but in a like, I want to have this in my hands and paper, and
Believe me, I want it to be finished. I want it to be finished too because I want to be able to put it on my shelf, and I also like money. So.
Alrighty.
I mean, that's part of the reason.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I gotta go.
See you, Ian.
We love you,
All
man.
right.
Later,
Bye, guys.
Aaron.
See ya.
See you next time.
All right. Okay. Brendan, Braden and Alex. Jesse's thing is gonna be short. He's just gonna give us an update on the on his album he's working on. If you guys are willing to wait for that, I can do a dice roll on who is next after him. Are you guys good with that?
Sure.
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, and
last
Joel.
if need be.
And Joel. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track. Anyway. Okay, so I got 4. Perfect. I have a 4-sided dice. Anyway, Jesse, go ahead.
So for those who aren't already privy to this, I have been, for the past almost 8 months now, working with my brother, Steven. He's been here. He's Vanalier on the server. On a music project that first started out on Thanksgiving night, where me and him were just sitting out on a porch. And he just said this one-off thing where he was like, I've always wanted to make... We were having a conversation about music, and he said, I've always wanted to make a song about Edmund Pevensey from Narnia. And I just sat up and I said, why don't we just make one right now? So we kicked back some lyrics back and forth, and I came up with a very early version of a melody. We sang it a little bit, and a couple days by the end of that conversation, we decided like we should make a song for all 4 of the siblings. And a few days later, we decided that's not going to be enough. We should make a song where Aslan is talking to those 4 siblings as well. Maybe we could make this an EP someday. That kept going on, and so to make a long story short, now there are 13 songs for a full-blown album that we are going to be releasing before the end of this year. As of right now, I started recording, it was about a week ago I started recording. I have 7 of those songs, at the very least, with an early draft of official recording. This has been a long time coming, because it takes a long time to do a big music project when you have a full-time job and other side projects running all at the same time. I've had to backlog a lot of my side projects, a lot of creative things. I haven't been able to read nearly as much, apart from the Bible. Just none of my. I literally, as like studying for this album, I had Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I read that, and I intended to open Prince Caspian, but I haven't even opened it in the past 3 months that I've had it. So it's been a very extensive project. It's been a ton of fun, and it's gonna be pretty fun.
You're recording this week.
The
Is that what you said?
I've been recording. I started
You've been
recording Saturday. Yes, I
Okay.
started recording Saturday in the evenings after work. Usually, just while I'm still in my office, I'll record for about an hour or so. On Saturday, I was recording for 11 hours, and I only was able to do 4 songs in that amount of time. It's a lot more than you might think. So for those who don't know why music takes so long, it's because you just haven't been there. Especially whenever you're trying to do it all organically, without a bunch of digital stuff. And so, as it turns out, my coworker, who I've known for over 2 years now, almost 2 years. He's actually an audio engineer. He came back from an audio engineer and IT background, and he had said a couple months back, he was like, I just, one of my passions, this was a conversation that I wasn't even a part of at first. He was like, one of my passions is I want to help produce good Christian music, and nobody is. At least not in like our area, not in our region. Everybody's all the Bethel, Hillsong, super emotional music.
Lauren Daigle doesn't count as good Christian music.
Ouch.
For people, Lauren Daigle is from a town very close to Jesse.
Yes, she's from
Also,
Lafayette, Louisiana.
Also, to be completely fair, Sabaton makes better Christian music, and they're not even Christian.
Yeah, right. More theologically accurate,
right?
Anyway. But you have so he was saying that in a conversation. He had DJ'd for like somebody's wedding, and he was like, he was just in a really convicted time where he was like, I really want to make good music, and nobody is. And that same day, I walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, I have a project that I've been working on for almost half a year now, and I think it might be you might be interested." So I had sent him a few demos, and he was immediately the next day, whenever he'd listened to them, he was like, "I'm in." And so he's gonna help me produce everything on the back end, mix it, master it. And it's been a really fun time. He also intends to go in, maybe adding some instrumentation himself, which I'm totally fine with. So this project has been a long time coming, very lengthy, but I do believe it's going to be very worth it. And the whole album plays as though it's functionally one song.
Very cool.
Apart from the last two. The last two are kind of separate. But the whole album there is just one song, and it's a lot of fun. More of a folksy style, but I'm sure I've talked your head off already.
Yep, we're excited for it, man. You've been doing some great stuff. I heard some early versions. I'm really looking forward to it. Also, he has purposefully stayed away from Sarah Sparks and other Narnia albums so as to not get inspired by those and to try and do something a little more unique. You mostly do. Go ahead.
some of my Spotify music suggestions, whenever I like just go into the wardrobe, as it were. By the way, that's the name of the album, Into the Wardrobe. Into the wardrobe of music cues, as it were. Sometimes a Sarah Sparks song of Into the Lantern Waste. Yeah. We decided on the name long before I knew that her album even existed. Will come up, and I'm like, skip, because I don't want any influence on any of the Narnia songs. And so part of my incentive to finish this album is so I can listen to the other ones too.
Yeah, that's a good incentive, because that is a really good album. All right, so Yeah, man, we're really looking forward to that. If no one has any feedback, we're going to go ahead and get to Brendan. He is the one I rolled. Brendan is the next one, and we'll roll again for the one after him after he's finished. So, anybody for Jesse? If not, Brendan, take it away.
Okay. Excuse me. Well, yeah, I didn't really get anything done, so I'm pulling from the last bit of the Simon, Alexandra, Callan, Ptolemy, and Leah story that I've tentatively named Unbound. It's this is the comic, the comic with magic kids basically. The only thing I've got is the end, the very very end, the epilogue, and I don't even have all of that. And I'm not sure how much I want to. Well, I'm not sure I like the last line. It's very kind of heavy-handed, I think. But so let's just get into it. The last thing before this epilogue is they have killed the Demon King, and the rebels have successfully overthrown the Empire. To use Star Wars terms, for lack of a better word. So, 10 years later, an older Simon walks through the town carrying a bag of food in a robotic-like arm. He is stopped by some kids who want to show him something. He smiles and no words are said, but he points out a couple other things related to it, to what they show him, and leaves them, waving goodbye. He travels to a building, it's either an apartment or a house, unsure for now, unlocks the door with a key with a magic circle on it, and opens the door. Leah? He enters the house apartment thing and walks toward the kitchen. Hi, Simon. Leah's cooking something. She still wears a shirt and pants, but they're clean, and she is also wearing an apron. Welcome back. I got everything you asked for. Simon hands her the bag. Excellent. This should be enough. What should I do? Asks Simon. Leah says, by the way, this is a webcomic, so the tags are awful. I'm just bad writing. Okay.
Yeah,
bad
for
writing.
your reference.
I know that. What should I do? Asks Simon. Go sit and read, Book Brain. I got this. You sure? Yes, I want you to be as surprised as the rest. Now go. Leah smacks Simon's butt playfully. Time passes, and Simon is in a big stuffed armchair reading a book. As he's reading something, his eyes widen. The demon that took his arm is suddenly in front of his face. Leah, who's wrapping things up in the kitchen, hears a crash from the other room. Simon? She says with a exclamation point question mark. She runs to find him crouching on the floor, chair tipped over, clutching his robotic arm. Simon! Leah runs over to him and crouches down, gently grabbing his shoulder. Simon said, I'm fine, Leah. Sorry. He looks down at his arm. Leah, you saw him again, didn't you? Leah looks concerned at Simon. Simon says, Simon, yeah, and the pain. He looks at his arm, even though it shouldn't. Pause for a beat. How long has it been since last time? Leah pulls her arm around Simon and helps him to the couch. 2 months for day episodes. Simon watches as Leah puts the chair back. I had a nightmare last week. I know, love, I woke you up. Leah walks over and kneels in front of Simon. And it was only 3 days ago that I had a bad dream. Simon says, yes, but you don't create new bodies of water when you sweat. Simon leans forward and puts his head in his hands. It seems so real, I just react out of instinct. I should know he's dead, but every time I see his face... Leah continues what he's saying. You are back in that moment, just before he took your arm. Leon leans forward. I watched him do it to you. I thought you had died, with all the blood and how you lay still. Leah takes his hand and lifts his face. When you fell, for a moment, I thought my world would be black as the void. And I do remember that moment very vividly. Simon looks and smiles a sad smile. Even the mighty High Inquisitor, huh? Leah rolls her eyes. I was only Inquisitor for 4 years, and that was to satisfy leader whose name I don't have yet. Wish. She leans forward and puts her forehead on his. And you of all people should know I have weaknesses, book brain. Simon smiles. You know, you saying that now means something completely different. You know, and her reply, you know why. Don't make me say it. Simon, I wasn't planning on making you say anything. And they kiss. Leah stands up. I gotta go check on the pie. Simon grins as she walks away. Don't let the house burn down now. He ducks as a book flies over his head. As he picks it up and puts it back in its place, he hears the door open, and a young boy with dark hair sprints up to him in all caps. Uncle Simon! Simon laughs. Ari! He scoops up his unofficial nephew, spinning him around or putting him down. You're getting so big, soon you will be lifting me. A voice from off camera. Ari, you can't open the door without knocking. Callan and Alexandra are in the entry, though despite disciplining their son, they look happy. Alexandra is obviously pregnant. Frankly, he has the right idea, says Leah. She walks, bear hugs Callan. You know you could just come and go as you please. Ow. This is Callan speaking. Ow. Yes, but he should learn some manners. Callan tries to return the hug, but he doesn't nearly have as much arm strength as Leah. Meanwhile, Alexandra and Simon exchange a quick greeting hug. Simon, did your journey go well? Simon asks. Yes, everything went very smoothly. Alexandra lets Simon take her coat and frees Callan's coat from Leah's overly competitive. Leah lets go of Callan finally. Make yourselves at home. Food is almost ready. It smells delicious, Alexandra says with wonder. Do you need any help? Actually, yes. I need your opinion on something. You too, Ari. I got a treat for you. Alexandra, you're going to spoil him. Leah, that's my job. Callan walks into the living room and looks at pictures while Simon puts their coats on the side in a side room. Simon comes back. So, how's life? Callan replies, busy. Between Alexandra doing her witch duties and the forest crying from industry, it doesn't let us sleep easily. Simon, and I imagine Ari doesn't help with the whole sleep thing. Callan, oh, he's getting better. It helps that I have a good relationship with some forest sprites. They play with him till he falls asleep from exhaustion on rough days. Simon, that's a good deal. Callan, how about you? Word on the air is that the kids love you. Simon, literal air? Callan, what can I say? Birds are talkative. Close in on Simon as Callan asks, but seriously, how are you getting away with teaching kids magic? There's silence. Simon, it isn't easy, what with magic all but being outlawed. Leah helped make it easier, but people still don't like it. Fortunately, we aren't in a thick industrial area, but most of the kids I teach don't have parents to tell them to listen to me. Callan, and the other adults don't try to stop you? Simon, I try to make a good rapport with everyone, and I make sure the back room of the library. Callan, perks of being the head librarian, huh? Simon, I still need to hide it from everyone, and there's way more bookkeeping that I would like to do. More conversation. Ptolemy arrives. Simon, Ptolemy! Ptolemy, hi. Simon. Callan, hey there, bro. Ptolemy, hey, Cal. Good to see you. And okay, pause. Ptolemy, for most of the story, was mute, except for like a word or two. So the fact that he's talking is kind of big. It has to do with his condition. Ptolemy siles Ari, whose full name is Aristodor. Hi, Uncle Ptolemy. Ptolemy smiles and crouches to hug his nephew. Alexandra and Leah step out. Leah, just in time, the food is ready. Ptolemy, what? He hesitates. Sorry, what are we having? Alexandra, don't apologize, Ptolemy, you're doing great. Leah, you're fine, and it's steak and ale pie. I hope everyone... They have dinner, and afterward all retire to the living room. Alexandra leans against Callan on the couch, while little Aristodor sleeps. Ptolemy is in another chair, while Simon sits in the stuffed armchair from before, Leah perched on the large armrest of Alexandra. It feels like it's been so long since we have all been together. Simon, I know, it was only a year ago, wasn't it? Leah, Ptolemy had business with Chiron, and the time before that, the Inquisition had to consult me while I was in the capital. Callan, honestly, I think the last time we were really all together was when Aristodor was born. Aristodor stirs, but doesn't wake up. Alexandra, life brought us together. Simon, but we were so much closer before that. The room is silent. Ptolemy, you are afraid. Simon, I guess. Leah, no, that's just part of it. Simon, I feel weighed down a lot of the time. It was only 2 years from the start of our journey together to the end, but I carry those years with me. Many of our memories are happy, but some haunt me. Alexandra, I keep seeing their faces. They look as she continues. All the people who were affected by that gas. I couldn't get to all of them in time. Callan to Alexandra. Our pain bound us. You brought me out of mine, and that's when I. Simon. I keep seeing him, the Demon King, every few months at least. Sometimes there are worse bouts. Callan. We were young. It was war. Legally speaking, the only two who were theoretically old enough were you and Alexandra. It was war. No one is old enough for that. Continued and then I have a note here. Continued PTSD, comments on brokenness and. Eventually, Ptolemy stands up and grabs Leah by the wrist. He walks over and pushes her into a kneeling position just in front of Callan. Then he pulls Simon out of his chair and has him kneel next to Leah. Then he kneels and puts his arms around all the people near. Ptolemy, we survived. We are broken. We are not okay. Ptolemy looks at little Aristodor. But he is. And we have each other. There's silence for a moment. Callan, that's my brother. Alexandra, our brother. Simon, we are family. Leah, and what he said is true. We're a mess. But dang it, you are my mess, and I won't let anything take you. Callan nods. To the future, then, Simon. To rebuilding ourselves. Alexandra, and building the next generation. Leah, whether it be magic or tech, they all say together, we won't be alone. And that's the end.
Oh, Alex, you're muted. Okay, just making sure. Yeah, that was good. I like where this is going. You know, sharing it is what was the inspiration for this particularly for you? Like as far as the sort of and I'm not speaking about the remake. Sort of Lilo and Stitchy, the We're Broken Ohana sort of a thing, but like in a really cool fantasy way. I don't see that often.
The inspiration was sort
Fast
of a
and Furious.
logical outpouring of the fact that these are kids who were caught in a war between magic and technology. Their characters is that they are flawed, and yet despite their flaws, they basically help overthrow an evil empire at an age when they had no right to.
Gotcha.
This was a PTSD discussion, and the whole Ohana being family mean wanting to sit and wallow in hopelessness of PTSD, that there is something better, right? You know, and the thing is that over the course of their adventure, like two of the pair fall in love, right? Callan and Alexandra and Leah and Simon. The fact that I don't have the story fully rewritten means that I might need to completely rewrite that because maybe one of the pairs doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? But
it gives you something to aim at.
But the thing is that over the course of time, like they all to change. Like Leah starts hating magic and she comes to like at least tolerate it, or more accurately, she comes to realize that it's the person, not the force. The force is a net neutral, right? And so I like the fact that it's all, you know, it's you know, and the thing is it's war. It was war. There are demons involved. There is bad stuff. How do you get through that? And back when I originally wrote this, I wasn't trying to think about Christology or anything like that. I don't want to add Christology where it doesn't fit, right?
Yeah.
while we could argue that Christ being the center of everything, we need right, but this universe doesn't have that.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not about to write one in.
Well, right. Yeah, no, this is about them. Yeah.
It's
the whole argument about Christian media needs to be less churchy and just good media.
Yeah, and I think the fact of the matter is the only thing that could keep them together would be, or the only thing that like they can't just go, oh, it's fine, we don't have PTSD.
Right.
So what are they going to do?
Right.
Well, they're going to go, all right, no, we're broken, but our kids won't be.
Right.
And we can be broken together.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked how you had a character who was still new at describing things, and that's how he said it. In the best words he could use, and it made a lot of sense to me. I loved seeing how they're finding a peace after all this, and fighting for their own peace. Basically, they're trying. They're hurting and they're damaged, but they're trying, and I like that. I'm curious. It's a comic, so pointing out you mentioned right at the beginning that she's wearing pants and an apron. Would that matter? Because you might. It depends on how high you have that panel.
I feel like that's more of a note for me, but one of the things that's important is that like Leah was very much a tomboy. Like she was a super tomboy. She was a dirty. She was a mechanic. She was a gearhead. She's strong. She's basically she's like the fighter of the group if we had to do D&D classes. And so like she's this gruff, tough girl who's the oldest of the lot, who's like, okay, I gotta take care of you eggheads because none of you would be able to like survive a bear attack. Or probably a small cat. So I need to like protect you. And I don't trust this wizard guy. So, the importance is less like it's not that she's now wearing a dress, right? To a certain degree, Leah's arc has to like basically defeminize her almost. And by defeminize, I don't mean like make unfeminine. I mean like not feminist.
Yeah, not feminist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
She develops gentleness, but she doesn't. But it would be incorrect of her character for her to go all the way.
Yeah, of course.
Right, and be wearing a sundress.
Also show this with her hair.
Right. Yeah.
Wife, right? Not
a different way.
The trouble with I do actually I originally envisioned her with a side buzz cut and then long on the side here.
Right.
The issue with hair in comics is that hair is especially in the manga style, hair is a huge indicator of character, of who the character is. Right? If you change a character's haircut, they look completely different because of how simplified it is. So now I am not actually 100% certain I want it to be manga look. I want to try to find other ways, other art styles. There's this one particular art style from one artist I found really am interested in, but I need to work on it. Anyway, point is, I need to find a way of, like, maybe the hair, but if I do the hair, I would need to make sure I would find another distinctive feature so that people would still know this is Leah, right?
Give her a mole.
A mole. That would work.
Yeah, or a tattoo.
Tattoo? Yeah. If she's the tough girl, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, I had another comment.
Sure.
She asked him how many days has it been, and then when he tells her I had a nightmare 2 days ago, she's like, "I know, I woke you up."
Yeah.
he kind of scolds him for answering the question that she asked. And I get you're trying to show that she was there for it and she's waking him up from his nightmares.
Okay, yeah.
It comes off kind of. I asked
Yeah.
you a question. I'm gonna scold you
Yeah.
for giving me the answer.
Okay, yeah. All right. Fair.
I'm not saying that. Just give it a little rewording or something like that, or maybe even if she like is caressing his face when she says it or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You could show via action
Playful,
that
Yeah.
Jesse,
Or on that,
I can adjust that and tweak it, but sure.
on that, you wouldn't actually have to change what she says. She's just asking when is the last time it happened. He says 2 days ago, and she says, whenever I woke you up.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
she's just like she's just confirming I remember that now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
less
yeah.
of a I know already. It's more of a yeah, I remember. I was that so that is the last time. Just confirmation.
Yeah, I think in my head she was asking about day episodes, and he mentioned the night episodes. Like, no, I remember the night one, but it's the day ones that I couldn't remember. But I didn't clarify that. That wasn't clear, so that's fine. It's hard when you're speaking and not just reading. Like,
yeah.
So I have a quick question.
Okay.
Any of you guys serve in the military?
no.
unfortunately, no, and that is another thing that I.
It's not an unfortunate thing. I'm just asking because I did. I was in the army and I served in Iraq, and the reason why I ask is because something that is, as someone who has PTSD, something that is characterized with it, and you're portraying it, and you actually kind of did it, is that when the subject comes up, there is a sharp tonal shift. And with comics, you can show it with your art when you do it. Where everybody, and you kind of did it, where everybody's kind of happy, they're having a great friends gathering. And for the most part, we avoid. And that's how we avoid in the gatherings, is we're all having fun. And then when one person has that mention, the tone just drops. And we all have that moment where we're just like, reality hits like a sledgehammer. And it takes everything for us to come back. And there's always someone in the group that has to leave. The one who's most affected is the one who, like, and it's their closest friend, not always their wife or their spouse, whichever, who pulls them back and is like, we're here for you. And there is always one of the group who would be the one who is the rallier, who is like, this, our children is the reason why. So when you're doing that rewrite, you can kind of, as you're doing it, keep in mind as you're going along, which one of them is going to be the ones that are going to be these voices.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and usually I'm going to tell you right now, the fighter, they're more than likely going to be the ones, like, whoever is the loudest during the fight, they're not going to be the ralliers. I guarantee it.
Interesting.
Yeah. For what it is worth, if anything I wrote or said during that whole sequence was in any way, shape, or form like angering in any way or mischaracterizing, or I do apologize, but
honestly,
very
if you ever have any questions or anything on that psychological aspect, feel free to contact me. I'm not going to get offended by anything, and
Sure.
if I end up getting triggered, I'm not going to. I do everything in my power to make sure that it doesn't affect other people. That is a me problem, and I make sure that it's not a you problem.
Right. Well, thank you.
I'm glad you said all that because PTSD features quite heavily in my book too. It's one of the big plot points. I have a character who just has nightmares every night. And part of the story is finding. They have to find someone to leave for him to have with him to keep him from having nightmares. But That's yeah. I'm
Yeah,
glad you brought that up.
yeah. Any questions or anything that you might have, I'd be glad to help because that's something I've been dealing with for almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I deployed. I did the longest deployment that the U.S. Army ever did, 15-month deployment to Operation Iraqi Freedom from April 2008 to July 4th, 2009.
I have a very good friend that was in that as well, and he has really bad PTSD.
Yeah, it wasn't
I-
fun.
Which,
For-
once again,
yeah.
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You guys
Yes.
make it.
Indeed.
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we jump, can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah,
As
yeah.
someone who was actually rereading this properly out loud for the first time since I wrote it like years and years ago,
Mhm.
I, to my surprise now, because I haven't read this since I've had Tristan, but um, when Ptolemy actually points out Aristodor to everyone, I started tearing up.
Oh, that's awesome.
so
Like,
this
Ptolemy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no. So I'm just saying that. Hey, I think I might. Brendan back then was a good writer. We'll see how Brendan today is.
Ptolemy would be the perfect character as the rallier because Ptolemy sounds like he has the most character development, and he's the one who comes out of his shell, right?
Kinda, yeah. It's a little more complicated than that, but yeah.
He can do it
So he would
in
be
a
the
shelled
one
way.
that-
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the one that would probably be like, "Hey, so this is why. This is why we did this."
Nice. Okay, so I rolled for Braden. If Joel or Alex need to go earlier than that, we can, bump that up. But Braden is next if there are no objections, and if Braden still wants to.
I will need to go earlier, but Braden can go. Or
Okay.
Joel.
All right, Braden, you good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, would you be able to do yours?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. All right, we're
Um,
listening.
So mine is not a story. It's something I've been working on for quite a while, and I hope to be putting together a video soon about how it works and stuff like that. But um, for those that don't know, um, I'm not a writer. I'm not a painter. Uh, what I am is an engineer, and it is really, really expensive to get into the field of engineering that I am in. Um, you either have to go to school or go to school, pirate software, or spend almost 100 grand on all the software you need to buy it legitimately. So, what I'm working on right now is creating an open source piece of software and then paid hardware that goes alongside that open source hardware so that people can learn. And while these may not be industrial grade pieces of equipment, they are able to function as a learning tool. So if any of you have any questions as to what I'm about to say, just hop on and stop me and I'll tell you what they mean.
Okay.
So I'm going to be creating a HMI. The software has HMI building features in it. It has PLC building features in it. It has CAD features, draftsman features, and a programming terminal.
Okay.
Does all that make sense to everyone?
More or less. I can tell what you're talking about without knowing all the details. Yeah.
Okay. It also will have a little bit of networking capability, so similar to Cisco's. Oh, what's it called? Um, Packet Tracer.
Okay.
It will be able to simulate internet networks and MSTP networks, things like that. Uh, I know that it may not be super interesting to a lot of you guys, but
No, man, I'm looking.
my
I'm looking
goal.
this up, and I'm realizing, oh, this is actually really, really smart stuff.
um, so yeah, my goal is to eventually start a school um, teaching all of this. Um, I and And granted, once you have a school, these companies, a lot of these companies will just give you their software, but um, I want to be able to run the school. Um, as I was talking to you, Joshua, the other day, um, I really like your idea of making it more of a forum based and then
Yeah,
have
community. Yeah.
classes alongside that. Yeah. And so this is a big project that I've been working on for almost 5 years. And I'm starting to reach a point now where it's actually I can't see the end yet, but I can definitely see progress.
This
Gotcha.
actually does
That's all.
sound. This actually does sound super cool. Are you still going on? I'll wait.
I no, that's all I have to say about it. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, go ahead.
I was gonna say it reminds me. There's a company that we started working for recently, and one of the guys. It's they're like they're a paramedic service for offshore guys because apparently medical attention and stuff offshore is not a legal obligation. But they're a bunch
Yep.
of Christian guys, so they're like, we have a moral obligation to do this, and we're seeing a hole here. We're gonna plug it. And one of the paramedics spent like over the course of 10 years basically making a system for their paramedics offshore, because the problem is, as a paramedic offshore, you have nothing to do all day long. You just kind of
Mhm.
sit around waiting for an emergency to happen, and you get bored over those weeks and weeks of being on those rigs. And so slowly, some of their guys started picking up more and more responsibilities, and they realized, how can we train? Like, we need to train our paramedics so that they can have multiple responsibilities while offshore, so they have a full day of work. And
Yep.
eventually, they become so important that they're able to do all these different types of safety checks. They get into HSE. They get into all the nooks
Yep.
and crannies of this thing. They do person on board, and they're kind of
Get
acting
them
more
Six
as the
Sigma black belts, all of that stuff.
Exactly, and they're kind of like rather than acting just as a paramedic for the emergency, because those happen, but that's rare. It's rare that an emergency like that happens. They're kind of acting more like the clinical diagnostician rather than just a surgeon, right? He's acting more like a mom than a surgeon,
Yeah.
and kind of just being the voice of medical reason on the platform. But this guy is more useful. So the dude developed a system called SuperTech. Yeah, SuperTech, where basically their paramedics become what is called SuperTech, because they're able to use this system that tracks all their data. They're able to cross-reference it, all the cost expenditures, what resources they have access to. All the things just go into this network.
Mhm.
I'm sure some of this HMI PLC stuff was said in his interviews, but because we had done interviews with him, but most of it doesn't really get on the other side got on the other side of the video project that we did. But you were saying this, and I was like, wait a second, I kind of am somewhat familiar just from just from what I've heard. So I guess I wasn't here for the first part of it. What is this for again?
This is for specifically young adults who are unable to get into this industry. Because
Which industry?
if you're controls and instrumentation and systems engineering.
Gotcha.
All three of those fields. And the tech roles and the everything that supports those roles and everything else. Because the thing is, in high school, you can most places have systems in place that if you can't afford to go to college, the state will help you out to some level. And if you're 20, 30 years into a career, most people, that's their career now. They're not switching. But you have someone who is college dropout, or they realize, hey, I use the state-funded schooling, but I don't want to do this. Or they went to school and realized, hey, this is a horrible path for me. Whatever it might be. There's no reason for that person to go another 80 to 150 grand in debt to learn a new skill when I can teach them, or through the course of providing this system and this training platform, I can teach them how to do it for hopefully less than $50 a person.
And provide the software for them to do their job. That's the other half of it.
Yep. Yeah, that's the other thing is not only teach them how to do it, but get them if they want to run their own little, if they want to be an entrepreneur and run their own deal, they can completely run my stuff, and the software is free for them. They just have to pay for the hardware, which that's obviously never going to be free, but you can. My plan would be nothing in the hardware side costs more than $500, which is insanely cheap for this stuff. Put it into a little bit of perspective. I was handling a piece of equipment earlier that the computer side alone was almost 12 grand.
Yep.
So you're just seeing a giant hole in your industry of a lack of people coming in, or rather, people who want to get in but don't have an in because it's too expensive.
And also don't know.
And
about
rather
it.
than rather than leaving it up to Big Brother to fund it, where the government shouldn't be the one to fund that; they should be the one suppressing evil, not incentivizing and creating industry. Right? You're saying I'm just going to do it. That's awesome. Yeah. We work with clients that do that all the time. That's a very Christian thing to do. You see a hole, you seek to fulfill and provide a good service, and you say, "I'm going to do it for a reasonable price."
Yep.
And there is another side to it that I can talk off this
Cool.
Because if it comes to fruition, I don't want it to be recorded. But yes.
Fair enough.
Gotcha. Understood.
I think it's great that you're doing something for people who are maybe missed their window of the first free college thing, and now it's like they've been life, they've got a family, they can't stop everything and go back to school to change careers. I think it's great.
A good way to dig yourself out of debt if you did go too. As far as all that goes. So with just straight up raw cash. But that's awesome, Braden. We're cheering for you on that. Alex, do you have time to get into your thing before you leave?
Yes, I do.
I'm gonna
I've
have to-
actually been working on it.
All right, Braden, we
I'm gonna
appreciate you
have to
being
hop
here, man.
off, guys.
Okay,
See you, Braden.
much
I'll
love,
see
man.
you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Joel, I did roll, by the way.
Okay.
And it was Alex. So on top of everything else, it's just him. So we'll get to yours last. We always love hearing you. It's incentive for people to stay too. So go
Absolutely.
ahead.
If I can't stay on, I'll definitely come back and listen through it and give you my thoughts on it. Okay, so for our Thursday night group a couple of weeks ago, instead of doing our book study because we're in between books
At church, right?
we watched a movie. Not at church. This
Oh,
is the book study. This is the Thursday night group.
Yeah, okay. Your
Yeah.
Thursday night in-person group thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we watched a movie. The movie was called Disciples in the Moonlight. It's a Christian movie that came out relatively recently. I think it came out last year or earlier this year. It wasn't terrible. It had decent cinematography. That's the best part of it. It had decent cinematography. But the story was kind of interesting. It had a really interesting premise. So the idea was it's sort of dystopian in a world where the Bible is being systematically hunted down by the government and replaced with a new government-approved translation.
Okay.
And so the idea of the movie is that there's this church group in Indiana. Shout out Brendan. That has some Bibles, has Bibles there, and they need to get them to some of the churches in the surrounding cities, surrounding states, specifically 7 of them. Yes.
Isn't this the plot of that Denzel Washington movie?
Book of Eli? Doesn't sound like it to me.
Except for in that one,
They've already
people
hunted
trying to
down
get their
the
hands on
Bible.
the Bible are trying to destroy it
Right.
because it's the cause of all the issues.
But also
Except for Gary Oldman,
they've
who wants to
already
use it.
Also, it's literally like the last one in Denzel Washington's version, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Denzel Washington's the last Bible, Gary Oldman wants to use it to control everything or to control people or whatever.
Feel free to ask any questions about this, by the way, so nobody needs to be muted if they don't want to. But they do something interesting. There are 7 churches that they need to deliver a Bible to. And they end up getting a crew of 7 people together. So it kind of, like, the general premise feels kind of like a Christian Ocean's 11, but in reverse. Instead of a heist, they're trying to get something out.
Right.
It's a kind of an interesting premise for a story. And it gets slightly more interesting at the very beginning and then less interesting by the end because the 7 they named the 7 churches, they codenamed the 7 churches that they're going to as the 7 churches at the beginning of the book of Revelation.
Right.
So Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea. And then they have 7 people on their crew, each one going to a different church. And the 7 people in the crew correspond to the churches in the book of Revelation, some of their character traits. So one of them is lukewarm, one of them has left their first love, that type of thing. They don't follow through with this at all. The movie, they start doing that and they're like, oh, this is really interesting. And then about not halfway through, at the end Act 2, beginning Act 3 portion of the story, they switch from a Revelation theme into just John 3:16, and it's really disappointing because they had such potential for doing something so interesting, and then they just swing and a miss. And so the idea that I have is to rewrite it as, instead of a movie, a series, a 8-episode series that actually goes through and follows through on all of these themes. So, like, you start with the Ephesus episode that's
Would you
talking.
make it a 7-episode series?
So it's 7 episodes. 7 episodes focusing on each of the characters, building up the team, and then the 8th episode is the mission itself. Is the idea.
Okay.
So you have all the days of the week, you have all the churches, you have all the characters. They each get their episode. And then the 8th episode is the 8th day, which in biblical typology is the day of resurrection. So the mission's going actually happening. So
Yeah.
that's the idea that I have. I have some stuff written down about them. I've been going through James Jordan's Revelation series because, at least I know that Jordan isn't going to be 100% off.
Right.
And he actually goes through and does a lot of spade work on the typology and going through talking about how this each of the 7 cities looks backwards to the Old Testament, talking about the 7 eras of the Old Testament, and then actually looks forward to the other stuff that's happening in Revelation and all that type of stuff. So super interesting. That would be really helpful for working on those themes for each of the episodes.
Right.
But I have stuff written for each of those. If you are interested in hearing, I say each of them up until Thyatira, I have stuff written down for the churches and the main character of the episode. If you guys want to hear some of that, if not, I'm perfectly fine to hear the ideas, thoughts on the idea or concept as well.
I love the idea and the concept. Do you want to? Maybe you can share one and then start bringing them back for next broadcast. Running through a couple next broadcast.
So, a lot of this is just taken direct. At least currently, I'll separate it off and do create more distinction from the original film as I go on and build it up. But a lot of this is taken directly from the film. So the episode 0 would be the trailer. I'm thinking a full 7-minute trailer in the style of that one that Alfred Hitchcock did for Psycho whenever it came out. It's just him walking through the house saying, "This is where this is going to, but I shouldn't tell you that, and this is where, and I shouldn't tell you that." Long, actually meaningful, impactful trailer. That is the opening scene of the film, which is where Nate, the leader of the group, and in the movie his name is Jake. I've changed his name to Saul here just because there were 4 J names on the team, and that was not okay.
No, not okay.
Baptist probably made it.
Probably. But so Nate and Saul are they have a big pile of Bibles that they're planning on shipping out. They're meeting somebody called the Apostle to get those Bibles out to people who need them. But then the place gets found out by the government. The government comes in, they narrowly escape. That's the opening scene of the movie. And so this would just be reshooting that as a trailer. Just one trailer, no teasers, just one trailer that sets the stage for it. Episode 1 begins with Saul getting home and starting to argue with his wife about the work that he's doing, stuff like that, because he's married. They actually have a good relationship, but she obviously is worried about him because he's going up against the government and doing stuff that's unsafe, and she doesn't want to lose him. Obviously, makes sense. But the episode 1 is going to focus on Ephesus, the church in Ephesus, which is the first church brought up in the book of Revelation. And they're pretty good. They fight for the faith, but they've become so preoccupied in fighting that they've left their love, is what John yells at them for. He says, "You've left your first love, even though you're zealous." And so he calls them back to that. And the corresponding character for that is Jim. So Jim was a pastor of a church in a town in Illinois that his wife saw the persecution that was coming and started hoarding Bibles ready to give them out whenever they started cracking down on that. the government ends up finding out and killing his wife in front of him. And so he leaves. This is my sister Zell, by the way, Azriel, for anyone who hasn't met her. You see Jesse.
She likes Jesse.
But so his wife is killed at the very beginning of all of this, like 10 years ago, 11 years ago or so, and he stopped being a pastor, stopped fighting because he didn't want to deal with it anymore, because that makes total sense. Having that level of persecution, absolutely. He still believes everything that he believes. He's not a pastor anymore, but he's kind of lost his fervor. He's lost his love that he once fought for. And so it's going to focus on those themes, primarily working with him, which is something that, as I said, the first half of the movie feels like it's going to be very interesting, because it's them trying to get him involved with the heist, or with the mission. He doesn't want to, because obviously he lost his wife for this exact type of thing. Doesn't want to have that happen again. He has a daughter, Ashley, who's another one of the characters. Who's another one of the characters in the crew. Who's another one of the characters in the crew, and that's a whole relationship that gets worked out as well. But the episode ends with Nate convincing Jim to join the crew, and Jim saying, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this my way, not your way, because I've done this before. You want me involved in this, that's what's going to happen.
Cool.
That's the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really promising. Are you dealing with the is the thematic thing just a coincidence across the 7, basically?
What do you mean?
So like this one is the one that lost their love, right? Are they purposefully naming the names of these churches they're running to according to what they're dealing with, or is that something that comes much later, or is that just a coincidence?
That's so the naming happens right at the very start.
Okay.
I think in the movie it happens after Jim comes in. He says, "Okay, we need to give the churches code names. We won't know where they are until the night of the mission. So we need to give them code names in general areas. So that will happen like early episode 2.
Okay.
But they're not intentionally named by the characters. After
So it's a providential coincidence sort of a thing. Gotcha. Okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. I'm trying to reconcile that. Go ahead, Jesse.
Trying to figure out what that looks like. Yeah, Jesse.
I was going to say we work for a god who does not believe in coincidences.
Of course not. It's a providential coincidence. It's fine.
Yeah. So that's how that goes. And then Smyrna goes with Ty, Pergamum goes with Cody, Thyatira goes with Ashley, Sardis goes with JJ, Philadelphia goes with Nate, who's the leader, and then Laodicea goes with Solomon. And there's a lot of... The movie's worth a watch. If you can get a group of people together and pay the like $4 or whatever it is to stream on Amazon, it's worth a watch just to see the raw potential of that story that's there and how badly it's whiffed.
Right.
But I think it could be told so much better with just a little bit more thought put into how it was going to be done.
Yeah, definitely.
There's so many Christian movies.
I'm not thinking of a Christian movie here, and I'm forgetting what movie it is, but there was a movie back in the 90s that was based off of a movie that was made in the 80s. It was some kind of mobster-style movie. And there was no differences between the scripts, between the story, between the plot, nothing. It was almost like a shot-for-shot remake of the first one, except the only difference was the actors were different. And the first one, where it flopped, the second one won Oscars because it was really good. It's just it's so fascinating that so many Christians sit on such good stories, but we have this idea that because we have the Holy Spirit, we don't have to try that hard, which is the complete opposite of, point of having the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
And if we just told those stories well, think like Lewis and Tolkien, they just told good stories. That was it. And because they were also Christian, look how much further it went.
Go ahead,
It's
John.
not only that, but a lot of times the marketing is only to the audience of Christians.
Yep.
And that's kind of like this narrow margin of we're just going for the people who already are in the seats.
Right.
Which
like
like film
me,
is
like
really
the Book of Eli probably made people more aware that weren't, like, for me, Book of Eli is a perfect Christian movie because it went, hey, this is something that you probably didn't know about in a way that you have never heard of before.
Movies as a form of evangelism is such a good medium, and it's just thrown away with Christian
They think
media.
we have to
as
preach to
altogether.
evangelize.
Well, no, they do
That's part of the
exactly. They
issue.
think we have to preach to evangelize, but the only problem is the preaching only happens to people who are already professing Christians. If you're actually looking to go to other people, you have to appeal to their ideas because you're not treating it like a church service. If you start treating church services where we need to appeal to the guy in the back who just showed up,
right,
that's not the point of church.
Nope.
But you can do that with movies.
You feed the sheep.
You can do that with movies.
Right.
That's the whole point.
And it's worth mentioning that in one of my stories, I made it very important that the character did not solve the problem with violence because the entity he was facing was wrath incarnate. And I don't believe you can fight wrath with wrath. However, in Simon, Alexandra, Tunderfold, all the other stories I've written, violence is a method at solving problems because it's a nice microcosm of good versus evil. And plus, even in the real world, there are times when violence is a good thing, right? So it's all, so even in the Book of Eli, which is a violent film, it's not God of War 1, 2, and 3 violence that's there for gratuitous, basically violence porn. It's not that. It's violence with a purpose.
Right.
Anyway.
Yep.
The bar fight's pretty cool too.
All right, we're approaching
By the way, if anybody is interested, the new Apple iPad OS update is absolutely awesome. This is my screen on my iPad.
Okay.
That I just sent in the.
You sent it in the chat. Gotcha. Okay, I'll pull that real quick.
It's absolutely awesome how well you can multitask now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. All right. We've got one more left. We're approaching the 3-hour mark on this one. We had a lot of people this month, which is great. Joel, it is your time to shine. Rock and roll with what you got, man.
All right. So last time we read The Ghost Warrior, and that was it. That was all I'd written. It was an exercise to write a short story.
So good.
Well, so many people asked, especially Jesse, for more that I decided to make it part 1 of 3.
Yay!
So I'm going to read part 2.
All right.
So this is this is needs to be gone over, but here we go. And it might not go the way you think. Be prepared. 1 second. All right. Toby stooped and picked up the flowers off the road. He brushed some of the dirt from the petals before offering them again. His eyes passed over the abandoned ruin of the Beckman's farm. After a decade of constantly changing hands, the farm had fallen into neglect. The fields had only grown weeds for years. A pile of rubble and a lone chimney was all that was left to mark where the house had once stood. "Sorry, sis. I thought you might like to see your old farm again," he told Lisa. "I guess it still hurts." "I have bad dreams every time I come here," his adopted sister wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "I never want to come back here. Someone bought it, so I guess I don't need to. Yeah, Toby rubbed his neck. Well, what? She studied her brother's eyes. I bought it. The words stuck in his throat with the effort. He almost choked on them. What? Her jaw dropped. Why would you want this wretched place? What were you thinking? I thought you deserved to remember your family. If we built this farm back, then you could tell your children about it. You could remember your parents, and I don't know. I guess it's not the 18th birthday surprise you wanted. He kicked a rock, and it clattered away down the road. Come on, I'll take you home. Look, she said. The color left her face as she pointed. A gray wisp flew across the field, disappearing into the trees. Toby looked at Lisa and mouthed, Ghost. Toby, no! She yelled as he darted off to follow the specter. Toby darted between the trees, pulling his medallion from under his shirt. He jumped a log, ducked a low branch. He had to head it off. Brambles pulled at his boots, but still he ran until he saw it. The long, wispy robes of death covered the form, leaving vaporous trails as if in tatters as it glided towards the village. It slowed and drifted higher as Toby stepped from behind a tree directly in his path. What is your name and bond? Toby demanded, holding up his amulet. The ghost stopped and hovered lower, coming inches from Toby's face. The cold chill of death ran down Toby's spine, but he held his ground. What is your bond? He asked again. A whisper hissed, swirling around Toby. Aaron, I seek justice, the ghost hissed. Toby's hair fluttered and his clothes flew against his body. For who? My father. Toby let out a sigh of relief. This ghost was only dangerous to a select few. He knew how to deal with it. Keeping the amulet between them, he softened his tone and continued. Tell me of him, and I will release you from this oath. Mother, he did it again, Lisa yelled as she slammed the door. Toby, their mother's head snapped up from her cooking. It was a spirit of retribution. I took care of it, Toby shrugged, ashamed that Lisa had told on him. I'm sorry. I wish you had chosen a less dangerous profession. Why you sought out that old priest and learned an obscure profession where you were seeking the unrested dead, I will never know. Probably to drive your mother into an early grave from worry, she mumbled as she cut an onion. He wants to find the ghost warrior again, Lisa scoffed, hanging up her shawl. He wants to free all those mothers. Toby blushed. Toby blushed slightly, but rubbed his mother's back. Those ones will be free as soon as he's dead. But I'm trained. I have protection. I know what I'm doing. Someone has to release all these trapped souls. It's my calling. She looked up at him as a tear ran down her cheek. His heart fell into his stomach. I'm sorry. I wish you wouldn't worry so much about me. He picked up the wash bucket and went into the dining room to collect the plates from the lunch crowd. Nice trick with the onion, Lisa smirked. Wouldn't work on me, though. Her mother raised an eyebrow, wiped the tear, and continued chopping. The setting sun painted the sky pink and purple over the abandoned fields. Toby leaned over the fence and rubbed the amulet, wondering again if he had made the wrong choice. His thoughts were broken by the sound of running feet. Toby, there you are! The man, covered in dirt, huffed. Resting on the gate, he pointed back down to the path he had come. You must come quickly. It's the silver mine. A spirit is attacking the workers. Toby didn't wait for the man to catch his breath. The crowd parted as Toby walked to the mine entrance. No fear entered his mind. Instead, he felt sorrow for the spirit trapped on this plane. A loud metallic crash echoed through the tunnels. Did everyone make it out? Toby asked the foreman. We only have 2 men unaccounted for. Toby set his jaw and took a step forward. Wait, said the foreman. He handed him a lantern and tied a rope to Toby's belt. It won't kill me, Toby said, annoyed. Yeah? This is for if you get lost. Oh, thanks. Toby had been so focused on the ghost, he hadn't even thought of that. Suddenly, the black hole of the mountain made him a lot more nervous. He gulped and walked in. The darkness consumed him as he ventured deeper. The air grew cold with every step. Toby swung the lantern back and forth along the rock, feeling the walls closing in on him. When he came to a crossroads, he stopped. Another crash came from his left. He swung the light, searching the tunnel. It led down, deeper and under the mountain. He swallowed and continued. It was another 10 minutes before he found the first signs of the spirit. Pickaxes had been thrown into the support beams. The tin plates and cups had been hurled around. A wagon had been wedged into the ceiling. The ghost was mad. Toby searched. Finding the spectrum with almost no light was going to be hard. He held up his amulet and called, "What is your name? What is your bond?" A shovel flew through the air, just missing him. A ghostly face appeared in the dust and roared at him. His fingers stayed tightly wrapped around his amulet. Summoning the last of his courage, he repeated his challenge. "What is your name?" "Octavius!" the ghost shrieked, sending dirt and rock chips flying in all directions. Toby's eyes stung as he continued. "What is your bond?" "Revenge!" "Against whom?" Toby ducked as a pickaxe spun in the air. "Tell me your story." The spectral hovered in front of the young man. Through the amulet, Toby saw a lean face. Worry lines made deep creases through his brow, and a white mustache sat like a brush over his mouth. The old miner had always yelled at Toby for wanting to explore the mines. That had become his tomb. "The South Wall. We told them we heard things from the South Wall, but they said dig." The ghost pointed down the tunnel. "We told them. They sent us to our death." Toby strained his eyes. What could be down there? The ghost hissed, and the lantern went out. Frantic to relight it, Toby dug in his pockets. He had to find matches. His eyes couldn't adjust. Everything was black. He could only see the faint outline of the ghost in front of him. Then Toby realized there was light. He stepped past Octavius, keeping the amulet between them. Toby moved slowly until he heard the croaking voices that he had heard that one night. Goblin voices. He crouched and crept forward. The miners had broken through into a goblin cave. The small green pests were stripping the meat off of a bone, probably Octavius's shin. Toby tried to back up quietly, but his foot bumped a helmet. The goblins looked up and shrieked. There was nowhere to run. The goblins could see in the dark much better than him. He felt around and found a shovel and braced himself. "Octavius, attack them! Help me kill them, and I will free you from this bond and give you rest." The ghost flew forward. Picks, helmets, cups, hammers, and all manner of debris flew with it. The ghost threw objects like a tornado, pelting the goblins. They shrieked and covered their heads, ducking this way and that. Toby waited till one got close. Oh, I missed a part where he feels around and finds a shovel. Toby waited until one got close and brought the shovel down on its head. It rang like a gong. The goblin sprawled on its back, then rolled and sunk its teeth into Toby's leg. Screaming, Toby stabbed with the shovel, making sure the goblin would never stand again. The ghost spun around the second goblin, making it twirl. Toby swung with all his might, sending the goblin flying into a wall. Octavius rounded on Toby. The young man let the shovel fall and fumbled for the amulet. "Octavius, you have made your case. I will see justice brought for the wrongs against you. You have fulfilled your bond. I release you from any oath. Be at peace." The ghost let out a huge sigh and faded to vapor. "Thank you," Toby whispered. Blood oozed from this bite. It would be infected, but he couldn't see and had no bandages. He had to get out. He picked up the goblin's lantern and followed the rope back up the long trek to the sunlight. Toby covered his eyes. The sun seemed brighter than ever. As he stumbled out, he found himself surrounded. Everyone was asking questions. "Did you find it? Was it real? What happened to your leg? Is it gone? How much damage did it do?" Lisa pushed everyone away. "Give him some air. He just got out." She gave him a water skin and held his arm to steady him. Are you okay? He took a long drink before answering. I'll be fine. I need to speak to the sheriff. He can meet you at Doc Halpert's place. You need stitches. And that's the end of part 1.
Very nice. So, the beginning. Who is he talking to?
Yeah.
I'm
So,
confused by
remember
that.
the girls that they were?
Yeah.
I'm implying that his parents adopted them, and
Okay.
the older girl is now his sister.
Okay.
And I'm going to go back and put.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. All right, continue. Thoughts, people?
That was great.
Very good. Very, very good.
I noticed whenever you were saying, you would kind of look to the camera slyly when you said "release you from your oath." You were like, "You guys get that reference?" Which yes, I think we all got that reference.
No, I was looking at your reaction because you have such great reactions, Jesse.
It's true, he does.
That is true.
I
actually go deep into the theology on the last one.
as soon as you had said that, I kind of just wanted to be like, "What say you?"
What say you? Oh, good stuff.
Yeah. I really do like the concept of going around and like helping ghosts out. Obviously, as Christians, it's like, are ghosts real? I mean, we believe in spirits, evil spirits, but not disembodied people spirits. But
Technically an open question, almost certainly no, though.
oh yeah, almost certainly no. But it's a really good way to tell a story. It reminds me of a proverb. I forget how the first part of it goes, but the second part is "He who wins souls is wise," and it makes me consider whenever helping ghosts out here have peace. It's a lot like just going around and helping people out.
Yep.
It's a way for us to understand we can do this to the living, because whereas these characters are doing it to the dead, we don't have that option. Except we kind of can do that to the dead, those who are dead of heart, and bring them to life, or give them a degree of freedom, and win their souls, not by our own power, obviously, but by that which is given. And I think it's a really good way to just tell its own story. It's not like the whole thing is just allegory for evangelism. That's just like an offside. I think it's really a really inspiring way to tell that.
Definitely. I really like the just the function of how he will command the ghosts. It has a very video game vibe without feeling like a video game story, right? And I don't mean like there aren't good video game stories, right? But there's a mechanical function that is grounding this situation, but you still have very high theological and just metaphysical underpinnings that are still complex enough that it feels like literature at the same time. It doesn't sink down into just a video game plot, right? Like a standard video game fare, but it has a video game mechanic that actually boosts everything, which is just really cool.
I looked into Joel's eyes right there, and he was like, "I just wrote a story about ghosts, guys. It's not that big of a deal."
Yeah, but you're really good at observing what fits and picking what fits. And that's what the best writers do, right? Like you're like, okay, what would fit here? Okay, that. But that's cooler and fits just as well. Okay, that one. Right?
I have a question. Do I switch scenes too much in this? What happened with the pacing in this one?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think you switch scenes too much at all.
There's functionally 4 scenes. There is the initial scene that leads with the ghost. There's the scene in the house. There is the scene with the guy leading to the mine, which acts like a transition to in the mine itself. So there's part A and part B, and part B is really only the last scene, so you've really only got.
Yep.
I think it works. I think it's fine. I find it really fun because this is sort of like the backstory of the knight character, right?
No, this is the little boy grown up.
What? Oh, the little boy from the first. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I am going to have his backstory, which is I'm going to have that in there later.
Well,
but
don't worry about it. It's not important. I was like, I miss the talking to the ghosts like like some people talk to their cats.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was something that I thought was absolutely hilarious.
Agreed.
And I thought it would be super interesting to see how a guy goes from being this boy who stabs a goblin in the head with a shovel to becoming a warrior that I imagined Guts' greatsword from Berserk with souls talking to the ghosts like they're cats.
Right.
Toby was
Get over
inspired.
here.
Yeah,
Stop
Toby was
doing
inspired by him. Yeah.
Spray him with holy water. Get a holy water spray bottle. Just like no.
Jesse, go ahead.
He is going to appear again in the third part.
Gotcha. Okay. Jesse, go ahead.
What's my?
I was going to ask. So this little boy is the same boy who followed the first ghost hunter, and the little girl is the girl who's in the tree.
Yes.
Okay, I'm following.
And now they're adopted brother and sister.
Oh, that's sweet.
Very cool. Love it.
I thought about going. They're in a relationship, but then I thought, you know what? Everyone does romance. Let's do something different.
Yeah. And they're young enough that, or it seems that way, that they would actually have a very interesting brother-sister relationship growing up. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff you can mine there about perseverance and working together despite differences and all that other. Like, you got a lot there that you can do. So, a lot more opportunity, even if you just do the one more part. Do what?
I'm trying to show that they care for each other. Like, he's trying to do something nice for her, and then she is, when he gets hurt,
You guys are gonna need to clean the floor.
You're unmuted.
Sorry.
And so in the third one, she's like going around making sure he took his medicine, for the infection from the goblin cut.
Right. I gotcha. That's cool. Any other thoughts before we wrap tonight, the recording part?
I thought it was funny when Alex said you guys are going to need to clean the floor, because I was like, is he talking about the story where they're talking to the ghosts?
Yeah,
you just moved a bunch of stuff.
The story's good, but we definitely
you opened
have to clean the floor.
You opened all my cabinets, guys. I need my pots in there. You guys need to clean up this mess.
Oh boy! All right, everybody.
Brandon, were you going to say something?
The last thing I had, I totally forgot about this earlier. I was going to showcase a church member who's currently moving has a very vast collection of swords and bows, which is very nice. This is sort of like a more of a Viking style, just one-handed sword.
Very nice.
Very, very, very nice. And he has a couple of bows. I'm not going to pull them out because they're just a big pain to carry around. But the guy who made it is the guy who consulted the actors and crew for Lord of the Rings.
Nice.
Very cool.
And so he happens to have those. But the thing that I really want to showcase...
Sting!
This is Sting! You've seen it before, haven't you, Gollum? So this is the church member. He's got just a really cool collection. He's got some chainmail. He's got a few helmets. One's like a Viking style. One is a
Alex, I'm gonna have to get an emote of your face because we're gonna have to do a Debbie jealous meme out of it. Your wife did like jealous of that expression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it sharp?
Yes, this is actually the sharpest one. This would actually be the closest one that I would use for a bump in the night kind of sword if I were to pick up a sword instead of a gun.
Oh yeah.
Just because it happens to be the best made.
Okay,
If your kid was having nightmares about giant spiders?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
um.
Yeah. So this is sharp.
I want to get more details about that, but that can wait for later.
Brenda, did you have something left for Joel?
Uh-oh.
Joel was
Blue.
asking about that. No? Okay. All right.
No, just no.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and end the recording. Everybody, thank you for being here. This is a very, very good broadcast. Be your family's bard. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and the Lord will be with you wherever you go. We'll see you next time in the trenches on Poets at War.
For more episodes of Poets at War, please visit joshuadavidling.com or check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcast transmissions. This is Sergeant Ollie, signing out.
God of song said